The mystery duo.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm part one of the mystery duo, your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, and part two of the mystery duo, Mr. Seajan Sarowick. Seajan?
Hey, everybody. How are you doing today, Dev? Part of my mystery duo.
I, I am, I'm in a weird place right now. So I have to be honest with everybody. First of all, welcome to the first official episode of season 7. Last week we dropped on you our Gordon time capsule celebrating 30 years of the Bare Naked Ladies' first studio album. I had a blast recording it. I believe you had a blast as well, right, Sejan?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for you, but no, yeah, I definitely.
Well, I
That
know,
was
I know.
I did enjoy talking about the Bare Naked Ladies for an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. And thanks to everybody who has reached out with the kindness about the episode and thanking us for reminding them that the Bare Naked Ladies exist. But also a couple of apologies from that. Apologies to future Will, because apparently Will has been listening to Gordon just nonstop, and it has caused problems in his efficiency and effectiveness in completing tasks. So I did say that I would apologize to future Will on behalf of Will. And also apologies to my inside man at Stadia. He blessed us with Bluetooth connectivity for the Stadia controllers this past week. And I called him out for the whole Eagles Bare Naked Ladies conversation. So apologies, my friend.
Oh man, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that was a good one, folks. But we are moving into a new year, Dev, and we need to start moving forward. And by moving forward, I think we'll do what we always do on the show, and that's look back. So did you happen to see what I just sent you in the Discord?
No, okay, no, so that explains why my Discord is freaking out. Oh, is that Jones pumpkin pie soda that you're drinking?
Nope, not pumpkin pie.
Oh, I gotta make it bigger. Turkey dinner soda.
Turkey dinner soda. Yep, turkey and gravy.
My favorite part about this is the visual references. I too have a weird drink, though mine's a little bit more holiday on brand.
Well, I think it's time for the soda bowl. We need to go back the classic Say Report bit. I have found yet another weird soda. This one got sent out to me for lack of a better term. It wasn't like really like mailed to me. Somebody ordered it from a grocery store nearby to a grocery store nearby, and I went and I picked it up. But it was a special case of turkey and gravy soda, and I have not opened a single one.
Okay, pause for identification real quick. We live in the fucking future. I always like to remind ourselves we live in the future, and stories of my friend ordered from a grocery store to be delivered to a grocery store near me so that I could pick it up. That's future tech right there, as far as I'm concerned. When I was a little baby in the crib, I'm like, I hope someday I can order soda from a supermarket to another supermarket for free.
I, I mean, it's not too unusual. You could do this and stuff like Best Buy and things like that. You could pick up in store you've been able to do that for a while, especially because of things like, the
Yeah,
big
the
old
pandemic,
pandemic
that's
we
a good
just
point.
had.
But I guess for me, it's the fact that, like, supermarkets and organic things, like electronics, is just going to be sitting there. But that's a time sensitive item, turkey
Yeah.
gravy soda. I'm
Yeah,
sure there's
no,
an
I
expiration
think the more
date.
traditional method is usually to do house delivery, but I don't know if they really wanted to pay the delivery fee just to have
It,
Jones's gross soda, Mr. Jones's real gross turkey soda show up at my house.
you say that, I bet you're going to love it. And you're going to know, like, you're
Oh
going to be
man,
jonesing.
yeah. So it's expanded out from the Mountain Dew madness that it was last year, but of course that's because we are now in 2023 and we can only move forward, right? Like, it's and so now this is what we're going to be exploring, starting at the beginning of 2023: is can my stomach handle Jones's turkey and gravy soda?
Excellent. And as a bonus, once he's done with that, I have my weird drink. So take a sip, Sejan. Give
Oh
us.
man, I didn't know I was going to take a sip on air. I
Oh,
thought
you gotta
I
take a
was setting
sip of
myself
what?
up for
No,
this
no.
failure.
Oh, I'm just gonna waste 4 minutes of the show and then not take a sip on air.
Yeah, no, I kind of knew it was going to happen, but hold on, let's get her open then.
All right. So now we want to make sure that we engage all five senses, though the listener's only having one of them engaged. So the smell test. How does it smell? Do you feel like you're watching football, waiting for dinner on the fourth Thursday of November?
Oh, oh no, Dev. And there's definitely something herby going on in there. There's definitely some herbs and spices.
Oh,
Um, there's there's definitely like a. I also think it's gonna be a lighter soda than you think. I was expecting it to be like a heavier, like creamy soda because gravy, right? Like
right,
you
exactly.
expected it to
I
basically be bubbly gravy.
I imagine Jones had made turkey flavored seltzer and then added that to a bottle half full of gravy, shook it up, and then sent it out to me. So I'm a little. What's happened?
And just for the visual reference, so it is this delightful, like not the color of turkey brown, but like if you think of like the golden glow that comes off of the turkey.
It
So
kind of
really
looks
what they
like
did is they captured turkey musk and thick gravy.
it kind of looks like turkey skin, but not real turkey skin. I've never seen a turkey that looks like that, but the ones that are made in Hollywood of like
Yeah, like Norman
plywood and
Rockwell, right?
glue
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, and then when I open the cap, just on the bottom of the cap, it just says green means go. I don't know what that means, Jones. Mr. Jones and your weird sodas. Let's see.
I think
All
it is
right.
a reminder. So here's the thing: Jones Soda clearly part of the Sliders conspiracy. So whenever you wind up in a new location, you buy a bottle of Jones Soda, you pop it open, and it lets you know if green means go or if green means stop. It's saving lives. That's what he's doing.
So yeah, in every universe he has a different like job to get to people, and in this one it just happens to be soda jockey, right?
Yeah,
Like he's
exactly.
just
Soda
all
jockey
right,
and no, it
I'm
has to
going
be
for
the
it.
same in every universe. Otherwise, it doesn't help people. But take that sip, Sejim. How's the mouth feel?
Um, um, it went back to being creamier than I thought it was going to be. Oh no. It's like it's like old shoe, like leather, like oh, in Boy Scouts you were taught like if you're stuck out in the woods and you don't have any food after like 3 or 4 days, you like what the old pioneers used to do was like chew on their belt so that like to like create saliva so that they were basically tricking their bodies into thinking they were getting food. I feel like that's what I'm drinking is old pioneer spit.
Cool. That is the best. I bet they're gonna put that on the bottle next year. Tastes like old pioneer spit.
I'm Mr. Jones.
I'm Mr.
When I go
Jones.
prospecting for my gold, I like to have my turkey soda on me.
It tastes just like old pioneer spit. I'm gonna get me a gray guitar and play.
Look
Or is
out
that
for
a
our new
different
flavors.
Mr. Jones?
Coal dust.
And dead canary.
Mm.
Careful with the dead canary. Too much can cause you to die. Just,
This
just
is-
so you're aware. It's so weird that they used canaries to test for poisonous gases because
I
they had
mean,
tiny little lungs.
yeah, dude, that's exactly. Are you pointing out why they use them? Because that's exactly why they use
No, I
them.
know it's exactly why they use them. It's just like it's the Flintstones. That
Yeah,
is
I mean, why
something
didn't they
that
bring in like a kid or something? Because at least a kid could have been like, "Hey, I can't breathe so good," before they like died.
because there has to have been in any scientific pursuit there is trial and error, and they probably tried it with a kid, and then like that's when suing people got started.
No, no, this was long before any of that. What they did is they tried it with one kid, realized, hey, we're not really paying that kid much. If we just got more kids in here.
Either way, terrible things came from the coal mine canary trials.
No, I mean,
Coming
this,
soon to FX. Netflix wasn't paying enough.
I mean,
So
Mahershala Ali looks amazing in it. I'm just gonna say,
I'm
but
excited. I'm very excited about it. And is this going to be Vince Vaughn's return to the spotlight as the evil owner of the coal empire?
we can't. We're just recreating True Detective at this point. What are you doing?
That's all I could think of when you said Mahershala Ali. And okay. So you had your drink. Now it's time for my drink, which I don't know if people remember this more looking back to 2022. There was that viral video that was shared of people in Europe buying thousands of Prime, the Logan Paul hydration drink, Do you recall this? Is this the thing that other
Oh my
people
God.
saw?
No, I do. The problem is with Logan Paul, and we don't have to get too deep into all the bullshit, but he's the Paul brother that got caught up in like the crypto zoo shit and all this stuff this
Oh,
week, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken. Not this
it's
week, the last couple of months. But yeah, so there, and then on top of that, the whole dead pig incident. Well, I guess the pig is not dead, I should be clear. There,
I always
but
thought the pig was
but it was
alive.
pretty damn close. Yeah, so what else did Paul do that got kind of lost in the shuffle?
So this is from my parents. So this is like Facebook viral video time on the Say Report. People were losing their minds at an Aldi. So I imagine it was probably like Germany or one of the countries in that section of Europe where
I got the gravy burps.
oh
Sorry.
god. Well, if Mr. Jones did anything right, it's that it gave you gravy burps.
Damn you, Joe.
Damn you, Jones! I'm a dance flamenco or something. I'm doing a lot of Counting Crows references because I don't want to sing the song, but it's literally trying to escape from my mouth every time you say Mr. Jones. So it's a Aldi, and people are like mobbing it. It looks like one of the Black Friday videos that you would see where people like get trampled and everything. And on the belt of the supermarket are laid out three of these drinks. It's called a hydration drink. The name is Prime. There's nothing else on it. I didn't know it was Logan Paul until someone else was talking about it and like, oh yeah, that's Logan Paul's drink. And I'm like, oh no, because my mother saw that video and then was at the supermarket. So she bought a bunch of them thinking that there might be some rush on them. Which
Yeah, I
like,
gotta imagine at this point, fucking KSI just wants to strangle Logan Paul because like the Prime Hydration series is like a weirdly huge hit. I am currently looking at this information. Sorry to make it clear, I'm not just like pulling this out of my ass. But like apparently it is like a sold out nonstop fucking hit. And there's just a big old picture of KSI taking a sip out of his Prime bottle and Logan Paul with his punchable fucking face right next to him.
yeah.
And with everything that's been going on lately, well, over the last 5 years, I'm sure KSI is just like ready to just like uncouple from this toxic relationship.
Yeah. So I don't know anything about this, but we have it in the house. And I woke up. I was out until 2:30 last night. I just had a good old. Well, we'll talk about what I was doing later on in the show.
Well,
Right now, it's
well, there
drink
is
time.
there is something. Yeah. So the key to this whole fucking thing, right? The reason that this whole thing even fucking exists is that Logan Paul has been for trying for half a decade, and for some people succeeding. I'm not going to sit here and make a judgment call on this part of his life while we talk about something else. Believe me, I can get judgy about Logan Paul all I want later. But this is a thing that comes from the fact that he is setting himself up to be a Joe Rogan-esque personality influencer in the health and world, right? Like, I mean, even down to starting to do like MMA fights and boxing and all that stuff, right? So this is a drink being sold not just as like, hey, this is the Logan Paul drink, but this is like the Logan Paul get swole drink, right? Like that's what Prime Hydration is.
Yeah. He was Orion Pax, then he had one of these, and now he is Optimus Prime. There's a deep cut for
Yeah,
Zach.
comes in energy drink form as well. So which one did you get?
So this is a hydration drink.
Okay.
Its name is Meta Moon, and so I thought it was appropriate to drink that on Lunar New
Ooh.
Year while we're
Well, I
recording.
think you also got a special edition one because that is sold out and not coming back according to the
Should I not
website.
drink it then? Like, am I holding
No,
a potentially
you should drink it because investing in Logan Paul is like it's like
investing in
investing in
crypto?
crypto, and who
Wait,
would do that?
I just need you to do something for me before I crack this open. I am committing right now, 14 minutes into the episode, to opening and drinking this, mostly because I need the boost that it will hopefully give me. Because again, I was out till 2:30 last night. I just need you to do an eBay search on how much a bottle of this is going for.
So, like Meta Moon and their lemon lime flavor switch places a lot in a lot of their marketing. So
Okay.
people are okay. So this is Logan Paul 101. He's apparently not being very clear in the ways in which he talks about his product and people who really want one part of it. I think this is part of the formula. Like
Oh
people
yeah,
that want
definitely.
want this one part of it are not are all excited because they're like, oh shit, I have this Meta Moon at home. Maybe I shouldn't drink it. I'm not. No, Meta Moon is available, readily available for $30 for a 15 pack. No, 12 pack. So it's not doing anything.
Okay,
People are buying them by
so
the pack still. Um,
excellent. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, $30 for 12. That comes out to
but if
something
you
I'd
have
be
a
willing
lemon
to
lime,
drink.
hold the fuck onto that
Oh.
because right now there's single bottles of that selling for like $4 a piece. So
I mean, that's how much energy drinks tend to cost, though.
do $30 divided by 12. That's two something per bottle, right? So
Yeah,
that's not even a 200% markup yet. That's not too bad
that's
for
not.
eBay.
I have no problem cracking this open and drinking it as my way of starting my Lunar New Year celebration. So let me do it. Let first the smell. It kind of smells like nothing. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
honest with
It's
you.
probably just water, basically. Yeah, well, with a little bit of Logan Paul pee in it, right?
Oh fuck, that's delicious. I hate how good this tastes.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't know. I guess that's what the moon tastes like if you're Julia Roberts. Or Meta World Peace, which is
There you
the
go.
better joke, but Julia Roberts callbacks are what I prefer. That's really good. I hate how good that is. Um, it also has coconut water in it, so hopefully I also didn't just drug myself.
Oh, and a Bitcoin. Look at that. There's just
Oh my
Bitcoin
god,
just
a
floating in
Bitcoin
it.
just floating in
Just
it.
floating
It's
in
like
it.
Goldschlager.
It just shredded up Logan Paul crypto zoo bullshit. Just
Yeah, so that's what I'm having as my I tend to have like a coffee or something with it, and today I just got started late. So I'm finally going to destroy these prime drinks that are in the house. So I have a
yeah.
Meta Moon and I have a blue raspberry. So blue raspberry to come. Actually, I know exactly when I'm going to drink the blue raspberry prime. And that'll be fun. Maybe you at home can guess when I had the blue raspberry prime because we're not going to tell you in the episode, or probably
Yeah,
we are.
yeah.
So
But the sliding scale of influencer-based products for me is an interesting kind of thing. It's not that like products have not depended on like a face selling them for since advertising existed in this
Uncle
country, right?
Ben,
Like,
Aunt
I mean,
Jemima.
yeah, yeah, like we've always put a mascot to a thing, and it's the idea now that people are developing the mascot before they even develop the product, which I think is the weird part. And maybe that's not new, but that certainly feels like it's new, right? It's like first I'm going to develop the personality, then I will attach myself to various products to see what I can sell, right? And like on the one hand, you have the guys that are doing like clothing lines. That's always been fashion's always been huge. Makeup lines. Also, weirdly, coffee is another big one that you see a lot. Both two of the big YouTubers I follow, both the Jacksepticeye, Sean McLaughlin, there has a top of the morning coffee, and then a guy that I follow that does a bunch of Grand Theft Auto mods has a Florida Man coffee line that is pretty stellar apparently. But yeah, coffee seems to be the other weird thing that everybody gets in on, right? And so it's hard to fault a product just because Logan Paul is attached to it. But I will say that with some of those other products that I've mentioned, right, like those coffee lines or a lot of the fashion lines, things like that, I don't know how often you see the person involved selling it. Sometimes for sure, but like this is very much come by Logan Paul's special water versus come by this special coffee that happens to be sponsored by this person, right? It kind of think of it this way. The other thing it goes with is something like celebrity alcohols. There's been a huge upswing in the last couple of decades of celebrity alcohols because a lot of celebrities have realized that it's a good way to kind of move money around and stuff like that. But also, they drink, they like booze, right? So think of something like aviation gin, where you think of that and the first thing you think of is Ryan Reynolds, right? Am I wrong
That's
about
right
that?
where my mind went. Yeah.
Yeah,
When you
exactly.
talked
But
about celebrity alcohol, that's right where my mind went. Even though
but
Crystal
the thing is,
Skull
is like
should be
there's
the
other
first, but
celebrity alcohols out there that you don't always think of. There's like I think a nice middle ground for me was definitely like the skinny line that came out in like the mid 2000s. Just a lot of people around me started drinking it. It was light, margaritas and light pre-mixed Cosmos and all that sort of stuff. I didn't know at the time that it was created by one of the Real Housewives that was really popular at the time. Once I did, it kind of became like obvious to kind of pick up in some more of the marketing, but without knowing it, without being in on the joke, like it didn't really affect me in any way. Versus like something like Ryan Reynolds selling aviation, right? Like they will throw that in your face any time they can. And it's the same thing with all of this like influencer stuff. Is like if an influencer wants to come at me and be like, like I drink smart water, like thanks Zendaya, like I will buy some smart water probably at some point. And that doesn't like offend me, but something about this starts to feel kind of weirdly offensive. Now part of that could just be because it is Logan Paul. But there is like a weird level of like I'm not reading much about the water on your website. I'm reading a lot about how cool Logan Paul is that he's selling you water.
I don't know. It was just my mother saw a video and was like, "Oh, I should get it because I see it and it's $1 at this supermarket that I'm at."
I mean,
So I
boom, and it
don't know.
works, right?
Yeah, it
Like
does
she saw
work.
this
That's the
weird
thing,
thing, she spent money on it, then the marketing carousel goes around.
and that's how you make a consumerism tree.
Well, it's so wild to me because hearing about this side of it, right? Like your mom who has no like window into this world of influencers and YouTube. As far as I know, as far as I know, she's not streaming on Twitch right now, right?
No,
Like she's
no,
not out
she
there doing some
knows.
GTA
She
RP.
knows who my father watches on YouTube, which is a lot of like travel guys, and she
Yeah.
hates all of them. Mostly because they do
Yeah,
what
the
she
travel
does
guys.
for a living, and it's
Well,
like
right,
you give
and the
bad advice.
travel YouTube is its own special beast of asshole because it's
Yeah,
a lot of guys that are extremely privileged, never, and they don't acknowledge that because they don't. I mean, let's be fair, they're doing a travel video that's like 10 minutes long. They're not going to get political in their video, but like maybe they should. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's not what they should be doing, but that's definitely not what they're going to do. And so yeah, so you end up with a lot of assholes that are just like, here's this $1.7 million yacht going through Abu Dhabi today, and you're just like, what are you doing? Like, what are we? Yeah, that's a special breed of I can't stand these dicks. But the other side of the whole Logan Paul stuff is like everything that's been going on social media over the last couple of months because I mean he got himself screwed, he fucking got himself wrapped up in a crypto scam and like refused to back down from it. Like an idiot, he thought that he could use his personality to like make it not illegal. I guess I don't know. I think that's worked one too many times for too many people in this country, and he thought he could get away with it too. But then that actually didn't work. It kind of fell apart around him. And then on top of that, the whole and I think the reason that didn't work is because everything that's gone on the weird animal social side of like they found an old pig of his that at the time everybody told him, hey, don't adopt this, that pig's not going to be able to live a good life if you adopt this pig. And he was just like, nah, fuck you, I'm rich. And then like 2 years later that pig was like found in a field like dying of starvation. Like doesn't not a good look. Like there's more to that story than what I just said, but that story is kind of the twitterized version of that story, and so like he's not looking good in that regard either.
yeah. It was a situation where when I found out that Prime was Logan Paul's energy drink, and I found it watching a thing like gamer drinks and what you didn't know about them, and this was considered a gamer drink, even though I don't think Logan Paul would like that at all. Right?
No,
He
I don't
wants
think he's
you.
marketing it to gamers. I
Yeah.
think Logan Paul, and this is something that he's been trying to work against. Like I said, is I think he's trying to market this more towards his his MMA fans and his boxing fans.
Yeah. So when I found that out and I came home, I'm like, so those Prime drinks don't buy anymore because it's Logan Paul stuff. And Dale was like, well, then I'm also not going to drink it. Like, I can't. And I'm like, oh, okay. I feel for you. But I don't want them to go to waste, right? And I don't want to sell them on eBay. I don't want to be that person as much as we had that moment earlier on in the episode. I just wanted to
No,
know how much the Logan Paul water I was drinking was actually worth.
no, you
Like, if
find
this.
yourself in this weird position where this product that you paid no money to exist is there in front of you. So do you take responsibility for it, right? Like at
Yeah.
that point, you're like, society definitely needs to solve the Logan Paul issue, but do I personally need to? Right? Like you need to start asking yourself this in the moment. And it's a weird place to be in. I mean, like that's in a lot of ways what you're pointing at is that moment where you need to recognize how privileged you are, that this is not really a problem big enough for you to have formed this opinion yet, right? Like for Dale, she has gotten to this point where it is so offensive to her that she cannot stomach this, and that is completely fair and a legitimate response to everything that I also know about Logan Paul. I support that decision, but like that is because she's probably had to at some point deal with some shit. She had to come up against something that made her feel that way, right? And the fact that you did have not had those moments with the internet is something that is one of those moments where you need to kind of like recognize that. And then you have to ask, as somebody in a position who has the ability here to do something, what do I have the ability to do? And if I do have that ability, should I do it, right? Like it's just fucking it's a product that somebody bought and is sitting in your house. So yeah, just drink it. Like I don't think you're hitting any offensive buttons in this regard.
Good, good. I'm glad. And if not, we'll hear from the listeners.
Now, if
So
you go out looking for more and start buying it by the case, we might have to have a conversation about like the ethics of your dollar
I
spending.
gotta be.
But
I'm really upset how good it is. I was hoping it would taste like hot garbage. You know, like that turkey and gravy soda you tried that one time. When did you do that? I don't even remember. Um,
I'm still tasting it like on my tongue.
this episode brought to you by turkey and gravy soda. I was hoping it would be awful, and like the fact that I sipped it, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's like all the flavors I've ever liked. And then I wondered, like, is the Meta Moon? So in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they have the like Drinkomatic machine that
Mhm.
analyzes your taste buds and presents you with the drink that like is genetically conceived to be appealing to you, and it ends up not working. Everything just kind of tastes like bad tea the way that it's described. What if Logan
Yeah.
Paul has broken the technology and Meta
I mean,
Moon tastes like whatever you want it to taste like?
I will say that a $1 of Metamoon, like one bottle of Metamoon, sorry, $1 of, is selling for it looks like $6 a piece.
Son
Is
of
it?
a.
Does it taste so good that it tastes like it's a $6 drink?
Hold on one second. I'm going in again. Yeah, I'd probably pay $6 for this.
I
I
mean,
hate to admit that.
that's the
Like,
thing is it doesn't matter how good it is in general for me. It also needs to justify being this like price because again, it's not an everyday drink, right? Like this is like somebody buying a thing of protein powder and like mixing it into like everything that they're drinking all day. Like don't do that, you're gonna make yourself sick. Like the same thing with this shit, right? Is um it's the water equivalent of something like muscle milk, I think.
yeah, it's
Not that it does the same thing. I'm not saying
no,
that
no,
they are
no.
equivalent in what they do, but how they're pitching it, what the market niche that it fits into is the same as something like muscle milk.
Like it has 250 milligrams of carbs in it. Apparently, it's water.
Yep.
How does water
They
have carbohydrates in it?
got a bulk. It's a bulk day, Dev.
Oh my god! Calories per gram: 9 fats, 4 carbohydrates, 4 proteins.
You just I mean
What
really to
the
bring this around
hell?
though to like talk about how like it's a circle of bullshit. You know why it's called Meta Moon, right?
No, why is it called Meta Moon?
Well, so Meta, that's just like the buzzword in tech right now, but Facebook and all that. So Meta, right? And then
Yeah.
Moon is a reference of to the moon for crypto, which is a
Oh
huge crypto cry on
wow.
Reddit. So it is called Meta Moon because it is a combination of tech bro Reddit bullshit.
Yeah.
It is the most Logan Paul name for a drink ever.
Tell you the name turns me off to it now. Now knowing the thing behind it.
Oh, apparently the specific deal with Meta Moon
Oh
and
my
all of that is
god.
that the other thing is that it's the only one made with coconut water. The rest are not made with coconut water.
Really? Okay. That seems strange. I guess we'll check when I have the blue raspberry one because I'm pretty sure that one also says that it has coconut water in it.
Oh,
So,
that's I'm just reading a thing that's just like this one comes with coconut water. So I guess I assumed that that meant that the rest didn't, but I guess you're right. It doesn't say specifically that the rest don't.
who knows? This is weird. We need to talk about it. I have so many other things to talk about. I didn't expect for this to become the meta of the show, but
Told you, it's the 2023 Say Report Soda Bowl.
um, da 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 da, we're getting sued because I sang these four notes. Please donate to our Patreon
I don't know. I
so
don't think
we
anybody. Yeah, I
can
don't think anybody's gonna sue us because you have to actually
afford
hit the notes for you for them to sue us.
the legal fees. Um, yeah. Okay. So that's it. That was the soda bowl. I think Meta Moon wins. I would drink this again. I don't know if you drink the turkey gravy again. Would
I don't
you?
think I'm gonna take another sip of this bottle.
That's a shame. I think I would. I don't know. I don't know how to feel. Also, I just want to say something because we talked about the whole sponsorship thing. Those coffee companies, they sponsor the person, so they name the coffee after the person, right? Or does the person
No.
actually develop the coffee? Do they have
So
a
it's
stake in
it's a
it?
mix, right?
Yeah.
Like so I think with the Florida Man stuff that I follow, I think that's very much the case is
Yeah. That.
that it's just a company looking for somebody to be a face and so they team up and they do that, right? Versus something like I'm pretty sure that Jacksepticeye's coffee is very much more based on him being in the room. And the only reason I think that is because that's also the way that he runs his clothing business Cloak, that him and Markiplier run together. There's that's what I'm saying is there's varying levels of this stuff, and you have to always kind of wonder, and hopefully they're being clear enough, transparent enough about the business line of things to know exactly where they stand in this case. Is like, is this a person that was selling themselves and then a product came to them and say, hey, sell our product? That is influencer 101, right? Or is this a product that was developed by somebody that really like is into this thing, but and they used their social status to sell it, which is a different conversation, right? And like I said, this isn't new. We've been dealing with this for forever. And as far as social media goes, it's not new, right? Like the idea of the influencer has been around for a decade and a half now. And so it was always that idea of like, Gucci goes to a Kardashian and says, wear my dress tonight to this thing. Like that's a sponsorship, right? Like that is somebody sponsoring them. But if like a Kardashian goes to Gucci and says, "I want to make a line of clothing with you," there's like a weird legitimacy added to it in that regard, right? Like that they're in on that creative process. And it's the same thing across the board with all of this like YouTube and Twitch stuff. Is like people kind of really want to know, am I buying a product from a person that is truly invested in that product? And I mean that's always been marketing. It's
Yeah.
a it's just the way that you need to kind of decide as a consumer how you want to spend your money, right? Like vote with your dollar. And some people are really adamant that they want to support a guy like Logan Paul, so it doesn't really matter to them how involved in the creative process they are. Another good example of this is Joe Rogan, right? Like Joe Rogan famously can do like the Joe Rogan bump for any like fucking GMC supplement that he talks about on his show, or Black Rifle coffee, or whatever like fucking monkey brain juice that he wants you to shoot into your testicles next. Like there's some weird level of shit that some people are willing to buy just because a person is attached to it, and that's also not new information, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I was always curious about that because I see some of the people who sell coffee, and coffee's a huge industry. I understand why you'd want to get in on that, but I always like I guess G Fuel is what I was thinking of. Where like G Fuel has like a partnership with a Twitch person. Is
Mhm.
that partnership just we have this flavor that made us think of you,
the,
or
the
did that
purest
person
version of
say?
this,
Yeah.
the purest true version of this is the McDonald's special guest meal, right? The celebrity meals that they put together where they're like, this month come and get the BTS meal, right? Or this month come and get
It's seven
the Steph Curry meal, right?
cheeseburgers.
Right. And you there's this moment where you have to wonder, is this really something that this person sat down with McDonald's and said, this is what I want you to do? And I will say, some of the crazier shit that they've done, it's felt like that, right? Like, hey, we're introducing a literal whole new flavor of Sprite to every McDonald's out there because this basketball player really likes Sprite, but he likes mixing it with his guava juice or something, like, right? Like, so like, boom, like, and that is an interesting thing that I will make an effort to go and try because that is a product with a weird story behind it, right? But like, then there's like, oh yeah, this person decided to put like two cheeseburgers and a four-piece McNugget together into a meal. It's like that's not special. Like everybody goes and does that. That you didn't talk to this person at all about like what weird thing can we do for you, right?
That's the
Um,
Tim Taylor meal, right? Because it's a
right.
2x4. Oh, oh, oh.
All right. Well, but yeah, like you can see it in that specific scenario. Like you can see the gambit of the times where they actually do talk to somebody and say, "What kind of weird shit can we do?" Slash, "Hey, what kind of weird shit can we put your name on?"
Yeah. Like the BTS meal, it being 7 cheeseburgers. Nobody's going to McDonald's and ordering 7 cheeseburgers.
Not on the reg, and not and that's not like a. They didn't have to have a long conversation about that. You
Right.
could like, hey, you guys, McDonald's on the phone. What do you want to order? Is that what all they're asking? Really?
Yeah, they each want a cheeseburger. Ah, we'll call it the BTS meal. I don't know if that really happened. I don't know if BTS really had a meal. It's just funny to me if it would be like, hi, I'd like the BTS
Oh,
meal.
they did, by the way. It was a lot of nuggets mixed with various sauces and
Oh,
things
okay,
like
okay.
that.
Well,
And to
that
be
makes
fair, I think
sense.
had a little bit more cred to it than I'm giving it credit for.
Yeah.
But the big ones that I think of are like when McDonald's did the whole team up, kind of in the beginning. Like I think this was really early in the pandemic when they were like grasping at straws of like how can we keep selling burgers to people who are stuck at home. They teamed up with like a bunch of artists and basketball players and like designed like clothing to go with like their Sprite mix up stuff that they released. They released like jackets and shit.
You know, Camp
and like
McDonald's is another one that is
ones
just
and
insane. Like
yeah.
it's Camp McDonald's. You can get an inner tube that's Grimace's face, and I'm like, this better be made of real Grimace skin for $50 inner tube. that I get
If
at
I'm
the.
gonna put it around my waist, I want to feel it.
I
It
want
better
to
be
feel
real.
that sweet grimace skin on my bathing suit area. I've made it disgusting. So let's
I
trans.
imagine it's a little bit like purple Brillo, is what I've always imagined Grimace feels like.
I think he's soft. I think that the grimace is soft. I
Well,
don't want him
what
to
if it
be
was like
like
Brillo, but
Brillo.
like made out of felt, like so that like same like nesty feel, but it was a soft material.
I I want to throw up right now.
That's probably more like what Grimace pubes are like, though, right?
Yep. Yep. We got the. You got me. You got me to actually vomit on the microphone. Oh Jesus. Yeah, that is an image that you just gave me that I'm not comfortable with. I feel like that's what Grimace's afro is like. Can I
So,
touch your
Dev,
hair? No. No, you don't want to
no,
do
Grimace.
that. What were you
Uh,
so Dev, you were transitioning us away from this hellscape that is consumerism that we decided to open up our first real episode of Season 7 with.
Yeah, I mean, like we're here. We are. We're getting into it. We're getting into 2023. We had a little bit of a backup episode that had to go out last week. I'm glad that we got that one out in the water, though.
I am too,
But
because it
now
felt very
we're starting our.
2022. Now it's 2023. I'm a different person. I have a goal, Sejan. I have a goal.
I have turkey soda burps, so yeah, like, we're definitely different people. But what is your goal, Dev?
I'm gonna beat Ocarina of Time again in 2023. That's
Oh,
my goal.
I look, I applaud this, but for anybody that knows you, this doesn't seem like a loftiest of resolutions.
I have beaten Ocarina of Time only one time in my entire life. When it
Really?
was new. It
All
did not
right.
jive with me at all. The 3D effect of it just didn't work with me. But then I found out about a little program a week ago called Ship of Harkinian. Are you familiar with the Ship of Harkinian at
I am
all?
not.
So the Ship of Harkinian is a reference to one of the CDI Zelda games. That's
Man,
Charlie Delta
okay.
Dash
Yeah.
Indigo India.
You can find some really good clips on YouTube of the CDI scenes of Zelda and reanimated, but like make sure you find the original ones first because any of the reanimatids you watch, you're gonna think, oh, this is really cool, really wild, silly animation, huh? I wonder what the original looks like. And then you're gonna watch the original and be like, kill it with fire.
They were at the very beginning of the pandemic, or maybe it was like the middle of it. Someone remastered two of the games, the Wand
Of
of
course.
Gamelon and the Faces of Evil. I've
Mhm.
played through both of those and beaten them multiple
Which
times.
one of those has the shopkeeper in it? That's the like most famous one. That's like the big meme that came out of those games.
I feel like it's Faces of Evil, but I couldn't. I'm not
Yeah,
100% on that.
the Legend of Zelda shopkeeper meme, if you look that up, anybody that's like in touch with some internet bullshit will recognize it pretty instantly, and then that comes from Zelda Z CDI.
Yeah, so those are the games, and it's a reference to the king says to Link, "We'll have to go to the Ship of Harkinian." So, Ship of Harkinian, because the code is out there and has been, torn apart and built back up for Ocarina of Time, they can now mess around with the game.
Yeah,
And what
yeah.
I found out about, because someone was like, I don't play my randomizers on on an N64. I use the program. I use the program that's out there. So I'm like, what program is there? So I look and I find Ship of Harkinian, and I think it was like September or November of last year, they released an update that allows you to play Ocarina of Time in 60 FPS.
Nice.
And
I know
what
that, I mean, Ocarina of Time high res, Ocarina of Time 4K, 60 FPS, like those types of projects are huge. Like people have been trying to crack that nugget for a while. I'd be very curious to know like what other kind of cleanup they do because at that point some stuff's going to start looking real like it'll look really good and really smooth, but the hard edges of some things will start to show, I think.
So it is the way that you have to work the program. You download Ship of Harkinian, which I had to join a Discord to do it. I don't know if it's available anywhere else. You download that program, and then you need to feed it a ROM of Ocarina of Time, and then it decompiles all of the assets from that ROM and then recreates the game. So you're going to be using the assets of whatever ROM you feed it, and the recommendation is the GameCube remake from the pre-order disc. I use the original N64, so some of the tiles and stuff don't look great, but my biggest obstacle when playing that game was the fact that it runs at like 20 FPS because it's early days of 3D graphics,
Yeah.
and it just feels so muddy to me, especially as somebody like Link to the Past is a game I play all the time. That runs at 60 FPS. It feels smooth. So then to go to its like next console sequel and it should just feel so like it's working against me. I didn't like that at all. Anytime I've tried
Yeah,
to play
no,
Ocarina of
I mean
Time.
it's the law of diminishing returns with new technology in terms of look and style for us, right? Like the better that we can kind of get video game technology to look good, like the shorter the shelf life that game has, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we've gotten over that hump yet because like I'm sitting here still playing through the Mass Effect games, and I'm deep in Mass Effect 2, and I'm having a lot of these same thoughts. Now this is technically the remaster that came out in 2020, I think, or 2019, the
One of those,
Legendary
yeah.
Edition, and like so that in and of itself is already kind of cleaned up, but it is also getting 3 or 4 years old now, and I'm having those same thoughts. But it's that idea that like the reason why the Super Nintendo stuff still looks sharp and clean is I think that curve, that bell curve, has just gotten like worse and worse and worse. Is like a game comes out and it looks stellar, and then like within a year you start looking back and stuff and you're just like, oof, ugly. Like, and that's one of the big problems that's going on right now with the PlayStation leap, and the fact that like not enough people can make it to 5, is that 4 is starting to really look just real ugly. But the problem is nobody's got a 5, so nobody's developing specifically for the 5. But the 5 looks gorgeous compared to what's going on especially with all the Unreal stuff that's come out lately.
Yeah. It is strange. And also you've got to think of like the Super Nintendo is the end of that generation of games. So like look at the Atari stuff and how grody that looks. Eventually you get up to that's the high fidelity standard. And then we
Yeah,
move
yeah.
into the
It gets a
32
little
bit and
bit
64
squishier
bit. Yeah.
because, yeah, I mean, like comparing the Atari to the Super Nintendo does not seem the same though as comparing like the Xbox One to the PlayStation 5 to me, you know?
Fair. That's fair. But it is, but I'm saying that like in
You're right
terms
though.
of
Like in terms
technology,
of the time period and all of that stuff, it is the comparison. It's weird to think about, but I think again that comes with the curve, right? As we've slowed down iteration because iteration is so incremental now that like it doesn't feel worth putting a system out every 3 years like they used to, or every 5 years like they used to, you know?
yeah, it's true. They do revisions that have slightly better things under the hood, and at that point, why are you not just playing on a PC so that
Right.
you can just do that revision yourself for a lot less money than buying a new complete box? And I'm not shunning anybody or judging. I mean, I still buy consoles, but it is one of those situations where you're buying the console for ease of access, but they're able to take advantage of you because of that ease of access that they're providing.
Yep. Yeah, you just got to be a smart consumer about it. But I mean, like we as I said, in a house where I bought myself an OLED Switch, right? Even though we already had an older Switch in the house, I wanted the OLED for myself, not only because like I had the money to buy myself a Switch, but I specifically was like, well, and now I'm going to buy the nice shiny new one, right? And so yeah, they got some extra money out of us because I wanted the nice bigger screen and all of that sort of stuff. But it is the same system as what everybody else in the house uses. I just use a nicer version.
Yeah, I mean that's why I didn't get the OLED Switch because it specifically affects on the portable level, and I'm not
Yeah.
playing that undocked.
Yeah.
So, like when Dale got her OLED Switch, it made sense to me because she travels with it. She's
Yeah.
using it right now as we're recording this.
Yeah, and I sit at like my desk at work and stuff, and I play it, and so I definitely travel with mine, so it definitely the math worked out for me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but so Ocarina of Time it's so interesting. Like I know that this is one of those hard lines for you. Like I'm giving you shit about how you're
It's
like
fine.
I'm gonna finally play it again, but I am actually very excited to hear you you do this because I am very curious to see now that you've got a decade or 2 decades really of this kind of game existing in the world like under your belt. How does it feel going back to one of those first like attempts at it? And I think it's going to be pretty much the same, to be fair, because you also are not somebody that's really evolved on that front. Like, not that you need to evolve, but like this idea being that you don't really love open world 3D like collectibles. Like that's not the kind of game that you talk about.
It's true. I like small contained adventures. And already I've cleared the Deku tree, and that's like the Deku tree is in my hands. Like that's just muscle memory because
Yeah.
every time I've played it, I've gotten through the Deku Tree. I know how to beat that dungeon. So it'll
Right.
be interesting as I go deeper and deeper out. I'm thinking like somewhere near Jabu Jabu's belly or the Forest Temple is where I'm going to start to have a semi new experience with the game.
Yeah, Jabu
Because
Jabu's Belly is the water temple dungeon, right?
it's
Am I
the third
remembering?
dungeon as the Kid Link. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
inside of the monster. You're inside of the monster. Well, Jabu Jabu, he's not really a monster. So it's like, oh, it's really gross stuff like that. But
It's
it's
gross stuff that you're like walking around in
yeah,
like meaty bits, right? Like if I'm
yeah, it's
remembering, yeah.
meaty and it's that it's the central conceit of that level is that you have the princess and you use her to you like put her down on switches in order to open things.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. So
See,
like
like even me who played that game multiple times in my life, I haven't played it in the last like 10 years.
yeah.
The last
So
time I played it was the 3DS release, which was so good.
yeah, which and I tried doing that one too, but then it's just I don't really want to be playing this on 3DS because the controls are different. Like I will say one thing for like Ocarina of Time, it made wonderful use of that layout on the N64 controller, and
Oh
I've
yeah.
even gotten myself a USB version of the Tribute 64, the one that's like the Hori mini pad, so that I can play through it with that layout that I'm used to playing the game. And
Excellent,
again,
man.
yeah, and the Deku Tree, I rushed right through it, and I'm just like, oh, that felt really good. Probably because like it moves at a pace that I want to be moving at. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But I am announcing here, first episode of season 7, that I do hope to be Ocarina of Time again this year, and hopefully within the time period before Tears of the Kingdom, so that I can also go through Breath of the Wild again. So I'll have those two to compare. And that's something I'm pretty excited about. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I actually just finished up another silly run of Breath of the Wild. I don't play for Ganon anymore like that I've done that like 3 times and it's fun, but it just doesn't it's not a challenge now. So now I do a lot of like Monster Hunter style stuff. Like I'll go looking for some of the bigger like Modalga and the Lionels and that sort of thing. And like gearing up to get that done. But I also I always find myself in this weird place where I just hit a point where I'm just like, I have to unlock all of the travel points. I just need to. Like I'm sick of like needing to go to an area and not being able to just like fast travel to a tower and fly. So I always hit a point where I'm just like, I'm gonna spend the next 2 hours just traveling around unlocking all of the world. And I've done runs where that's the very first thing I do. I've done runs where I mean the first time I ever played the game, I didn't unlock one of the last sections of the map until late game when the game finally forces you to go there. I say forces because it never forces you in it, but like encourages you to go there. Like that was when I finally found the last tower and unlocked it. And I think it's purposely built that way because like that last tower is like not up in the air, I will say, for anybody that has not played Breath of the Wild yet. But there's some really interesting stuff about that tower specifically being one of the last ones that you find, and all of that. But then I've also done some runs where like I just like I walk in the door and I'm like, all right, all I'm doing is unlocking towers, and then I'll start the game because then anytime I had a story beat, I could just fast travel. So I've kind of run the gambit on that. But I was just doing a run where I was trying to get all the Lionels, and I hit that point where I was like, fuck. I need to go back to this area and I don't have a fast travel there. I'm gonna unlock every fast travel on the way. Why wouldn't I? And I just unlocked like the whole map in 40 minutes. Um, so I just that game is such a wild experience, and I have no idea what a sequel to that game even is.
Right, but it's starting. The conversation about what the sequel will be is starting to be in the water.
Mhm.
Nintendo had asked fans, "Do you want weapon degradation to return?" Like they started polling on that, and that was an interesting thread to read of people who absolutely hate it and absolutely think that is what made Breath of the Wild a
I was
fun experience.
I don't I just I it's so crazy to me how this has been such a thing that people latch onto with this game because I have never felt I was without a weapon in that game. Yes, I definitely had moments where like a weapon broke mid-fight, but I just switched to another weapon I had. And like it made it exciting and fun because like you actually plan like I'm going into this battle with this with this lightning weapon, which will do some like really good hits on this particular type of Lionel. So I'm gonna get three really good hits with this, but then it's going to break. Like that's just so then what do I need to do after that? Well, that's okay because I've got these lightning arrows and I will also do that. But then that bow is also I've got three different bows and I've got one good one with one good shot left on it. Like you just it added this weird level of that, but at the same time, I never felt like I was punished for not being able to do that well. You know what I mean? Like it didn't feel like it felt like that was part of the game, but it felt like it was an easy part of the game to be blunt about it. Like it felt like yes, this is definitely a new mechanic that you have to consider as you play Zelda, but it's such a simple one to figure out that to get caught up on it and call it like the worst thing that's happened to this game is so ridiculous to me because it's so easy to deal with. When you first walk out of the very first like cave that you wake up in, you are given the opportunity to pick up like 20 sticks immediately. And on that level of where you're playing, a stick is really all you need. Two whacks with a stick will take out a low level bokoblin. So like the fact that they already are handing you an overabundance of weaponry and you can go to any tree at any time and shake it to get a stick, like it's just like you're never anywhere where you can't get a hold of something. And take the degradation conversation out of it. The literal idea that I could at any point, if like I'm in a fight with a goblin and my sword breaks and I can turn around and grab another one off the wall to continue fighting him, you know how badass that makes me feel as Link, as I'm going through the castle and like I'm fighting off these infected like guards and stuff like that. And I have the ability to just literally like steal their armor afterwards and like and use that on the next guy. Like it feels cool. Like
So I think it comes from gaming philosophy and also the games that you've played up to that point. Weapon degradation up to Breath of the Wild. I mean, I don't like it. It's something that did not jive with me. I will be the first person to admit that. But it doesn't work for me because of other games I've played where weapons break and how poorly implemented it is. So I'm bringing that baggage forward with me. And
yeah.
that's a
I mean, I'm
problem.
I'm coming from games like Fallout and Skyrim where like repairing stuff is part of what you do. And like upgrading and stuff. But I will also say that I play those kinds of games on like casual and easy modes. And in those modes, that type of stuff is toned down. Still there, still present, because in some ways I find that stuff really fun because the other side of that is also crafting. Like not only is your weapon degrading, but you also have the ability to over like upgrade it, right? Like there's that aspect which isn't in Breath of the Wild. So I could say that like that might be one thing that I would love to see them do is if I have the ability to downgrade a weapon, if the weapons have the ability to be downgraded, I would like the personal ability to then upgrade past a certain point, right? And they kind of give you that in one aspect in the game, and that's if you throw any of your like rusty stuff to an Octorok, it'll actually spit it back out at a better like in better condition. So there is actually like weird mechanics for that in the game.
Yeah, and
It's like
it's cool. I don't know. I think it also comes from a lot of the people who are coming to Breath of the Wild had played the Souls games, and I know that's it for me, where there is an overabundance of weapons, and you still experiment. You don't like get stuck on one thing and only use that thing. You want to experiment and see how weapons are. And so it feels like the degradation where like it's going to break eventually. I just found something that I like and now I have to use something else. I think it didn't jive with how people played certain types of games that were similar to Breath of the Wild. And I think
in the Souls games, just as a clarification, are there more than one of a type of weapon? Like if you find like a hammer, can you find that hammer in 1,000 different places, or is that hammer, that specific hammer, that's the one in the game?
that hammer is generally that specific hammer, the one in the game.
See, and that's not the case in Breath of the Wild. I
Exactly.
can't think. There's maybe like two weapons I can think of that are rarer weapons. One of them being the Master Sword that can't break. That's the other thing is anybody bitching about how the breaking mechanic they don't like it, then just play with the Master Sword the whole time.
Which is what I did. I'll be right
Yeah.
there. Once I got the Master Sword, I'm like, I can finally breathe. Like I feel good having
Almost like that's
this.
exactly what that moment should
Yes,
be.
right. But other people, I don't know. I mean, I didn't like it. But then the final thing, the final bit of game philosophy, because I will say, degradation of a weapon in a game, I remember Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 2 is an awful game. I do not like the game at all. It is one of the ones in the Dark Souls trilogy that felt the most like a slog for me to complete, and I got the platinum in that game. So I did a lot of time. I listened to a lot of podcasts grinding out specific fights in like the Dragon Castle.
Yeah.
I'm having flashbacks. I'm sorry. But the first time that I played that game, because there was a higher focus on the fact that, like, your weapons will weaken over time, but you can always go to a smith and have it repaired, which was supposedly there in Demon Souls and Dark Souls the first, but, like, it never was an issue. But the way that Dark Souls 2 is built, you start from a central hub, and then you explore outward into 4 different directions. And as I was getting further and further from that hub, I realized that my weapon, like, I need to fix my weapon or I need to switch to something else. And it came at a point for me where if I were to go back to the hub, because you have like the bonfires and you can fast travel in that game, but if I did that, it would reset a bunch of the progress that I had made. So
Well, specifically, it would reset a bunch of the dudes you'd kill, right?
Exactly,
Like that's the big thing in Souls games is like you don't want to repopulate everybody you just destroyed.
Yeah. So it was the situation where I'm like, I'm so far away from it, and this weapon that I've been using is about to die. I'm going to use it till it dies, and then I will hopefully have found something else in this area because I don't want to give it up. And that felt awesome, and it felt organic, and it felt like it built to that moment. It felt like I was so into the exploration that, like, it came down to the fact, like, I haven't even been thinking about the fact that this weapon that has been saving my ass and helping me kill guys, like,
I know, man. But you got it. Like that's exactly the same feeling as something in like Breath of the Wild for me, where like I end up with like a guardian sword and it's like top of the line sword and it's got like a couple of buffs on it and things like that. And I'm so excited I've got it. And even with me thinking in mind, like I need to use this sparingly because it might break, so I use it sparingly. That moment where it's in my hand and I start to see shit, it's gonna go, and I'm like, but I have 2 more hits left on this fucking like this. I just need to take 2 more hits off of this guy. Please let me. And then you do, and 1 hit, it breaks, and you're just like shit. And you're just like scrambling to figure out what the next move is. Is like those moments for me were precious, right? And like if that didn't feel good to you, like I understand not enjoying that, but in that case, that is a moment that I do feel is detrimental to the experience of Breath of the Wild. So if that's not something you like, then you might not like Breath of the Wild, which is okay. It's just to ask people, should we change this thing about it, for Nintendo to turn around and be like, should we remove this core element that made this game stand out from all other Zelda games, as we make the only like truly named sequel in the longest time since Zelda
like
2,
20 years. Well, Majora's Mask is a name sequel.
It just
so
Majora's Mask is
Majora's the sequel to Ocarina of Time.
Majora's Mask is not a named and was not officially a one, even though everybody knew it was for a while. Like Nintendo like fought and argued because it's Majora's Mask is weird because it's only a continuation of a failure state in Ocarina of Time, which I guess if you want to count one of the timelines and failure states as official canon, then yeah, like it's such a wild.
Is it really a continuation on the timeline? Because it would seem like it would be a continuation of the victory state, but Link goes back to being a child.
Right, but it's the timeline of Zelda is fucking weird.
It's fucked up, and we don't have time for it.
And there's also stuff in Majora's Mask where they talk about the hero of time, but they don't talk about it being Link, which makes sense because in the child timeline, he has not defeated Ganon on the larger scale. It's all fucking wibbly wobbly because of the story of Ocarina of Time, right? And so I would have always been on board with you and still am on board with you. Yes, Majora's Mask is a direct sequel. I mean, everything with him chasing the fucking fairy off into the woods and all that, right?
It's the Skull Kid that you dealt with during the game, like.
But so I am on board with you that there is a good contingency of Zelda fans that argue about how it may not be, and there's like all of that shit. Breath of the Wild is one of the or Tears of the Kingdom is going to be one of those few ones we think right now that you're not going to have that kind of wibbly wobbly nonsense. It is literally the same Link moving into the next story. Events from the first game are going to affect what happens in the next game. That's the other thing about Majora's Mask is like it is, as much as it may be a direct sequel story wise to Ocarina of Time, there isn't fuck all in Ocarina of Time that really affects what happens in Majora's Mask, right? Like Majora's Mask's story is not dependent
Well,
on
yeah, because you go to a separate dimension. Like he
exactly,
slides,
right,
Link
right, yeah.
slides.
So like that's the other thing is narratively, yes, direct sequel, but then you can argue, it's not like none of the systems are the same. It's a weird conversation to talk about direct Zelda sequels, because there is also not so there's Link to the Past, and then what's the weird one, Link Between Worlds, right? Like that's the other big like direct sequel that I can think of in
That
that
is
series.
supposed to be the exact same world, and
Right,
those ones are definitely based on a failure state because
right,
Ganon wins, which is why
right.
he's able to be trapped in the sacred realm to corrupt it into the dark world in Link
Yeah,
to the
so that's
Past.
that's the other
So
side of it is then you get into conversations about what's canon and what's not. And so Tears of the Kingdom is going to be one of the few Zelda sequels that is not going to come with all of that baggage, supposedly. With the ways that they've been talking about it being a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, it is going to be one of the few times in the Zelda timeline where we're going to have a pretty clear lineage from game one to game two. Um, yeah, and so with all of that in mind, like there should be some things in Tears of the Kingdom that are like core to the Breath of the Wild experience. And that's just fucking buck wild to me that Nintendo would come out. And when did they do this? When did they do this poll?
I don't know. Like
Because
Nintendo
supposedly they've
Life
been working on this game
reported
for
on it,
5 years. So
right?
if they
Like
did this poll like last month, there's a problem there.
well, it's not a problem there. I think it's just one of those situations where they're just gauging
If
people's
4 years
feelings.
into game development, they're wondering if this core mechanic should even exist, that's a bad sign. The game is supposed to come out in supposedly 3 months.
Well, maybe it doesn't have it in there. They didn't develop it, and now they're like, "Oh, do we put weapon degradation in or not?"
I feel like
I
if you
feel
did
like it's
not
a
design the
switch.
game
I feel
around
like it's a
this, then you've made a bad decision. This is not a flip you can just switch to be like, oh, by the way, the knives break. Is like what? Like
I don't know. It was a crazy thing that I stumbled upon this morning. I was
well,
half asleep
because
too. Like,
but that whole kind like that whole question, right? That whole idea of like Nintendo asking that, and who knows when they did, but like the mentality around the idea that it is something that can just be flipped, that the entire design of the game is not hinging on this fact that there needs to be weapons around to pick up in that case. Those weapons need to have varying degrees of things to it. And does that narratively affect anything? Because there are certain weapons that you'll always find in certain places because narratively they are introduced there. Like there's all of this stuff around the ways that the weapons exist in the world that hinge on the idea that you need to be constantly cycling through them. And so to decide, oh, we're not going to do that this time, that decision has to be made early so that you can make sure that you're not setting up a world with a bunch of pickup like you could pick up 1,000 of these rusty swords if you want for no reason, right? Or the other side of that, you decide, oh, we should have weapon degradation in here, but then at that point you haven't put enough, like you haven't seeded the world with enough weaponry and defense stuff to actually make that work. Like, no, you can't just decide to just turn that on. That has to be like a core decision that you make early on. And if they're asking that question any later than 5 years ago, then I've got some questions about the development cycle of this game.
true. You know, I'm going to take this time to take a left turn just real quick because we were talking about Majora's Mask. So I want to make a brief announcement about our very special episode for January, and it's directly related to Majora's Mask if you want to be an asshole about it. And that is the fact that there's not going to be a very special episode that's released in January, but don't cry, Hab Guy. We are saving it for the first Thursday in February. Do you want to tell the people why, Sejan?
I'm tying it into Majora's Mask is cute, but it's going to be Groundhog Day.
Yeah, we're going to be doing Groundhog Day. So while we were talking about the Groundhog Day of Zelda games and Termina and everything that was happening there, since it's a Thursday and it's Groundhog Day, like we were looking for a
Weird
January
moment in the
thing.
middle of Majora's Mask where you just have to kill Link a bunch of times is one of the weirdest montages, but still kind of funny.
Well, it's great because then you use all of the corpses to climb into the fourth dungeon. I loved that part. That doesn't happen.
The corpses still be there.
Exactly. That's the insane thing. It's Ned Ryerson's fault because he's in life insurance. I don't know, Sejan. I'm trying to live in it. But yeah, Groundhog Day. Look forward to that. But that's not coming out this Thursday, as it would usually happen with a very special episode. Because how often does Groundhog Day fall on a Thursday in the 30th year anniversary of the film?
Yeah, no, it was too good to pass
Yeah.
up.
But yeah, back to Zelda. It is. You're not wrong that it would be a huge detrimental thing. It's not like a flip or switch. I think maybe it was just an opinion poll on it. Maybe
I
they're
know,
not
I
even
get
going to
that,
listen.
but the problem is opinion polls like that, and this is the problem with the ways that companies talk to audiences right now when it comes to this sort of stuff. Is like I am all for the idea of giving authority, some modicum of authority over to your consumer, like right, like being clear and transparent about what you're doing so that they have the choice to invest in your product, right? Like that's a key thing in order to put authority in the hands of the consumer. I am all for something like that. Turning around and asking for like artistic input on what you should be doing with the game that you're designing starts to get really squishy with me, because like yeah, I know that's why like early access games exist, but that concept exists for like up and coming designers that like need help and want to know what audiences are into so that they can develop themselves. Nintendo's not at that point. And then on the other hand, for larger companies, that exists so that they can improve on what they do in the future. But like that's not something that you fold into the sequel to Breath of the Wild. That's something that you fold into the next time we do a Zelda like relaunch. We don't have weapon degradation. That I can 100% believe that the next game, the next Zelda game that they do, that after Tears of the Kingdom, because believe me, there will be other Zelda games like that one not having I cannot see that one having weapon degradation. It has been such a hot button issue that is not core to the Zelda experience writ large yet. So just remove it. Saying that is the cool mechanic that the Breath of the Wild world had, and being able to say that for the rest of time is an easy win for them. They can always talk about like the weapon degradation and how it was kind of controversial, but really in hindsight, it was this beautiful thing that made Breath of the Wild, like right, like that they get to talk about it like that in 10 years. But I don't see them putting weapon degradation in whatever, Legend of Zelda, like Bird Riders of the Sky or whatever the next one is.
Bird Riders, that's a great name for a Zelda game. I have to give you credit there. You know what I would like? I want more Master Sword style weapons. That's the only thing that I would need in Tears of the Kingdom for me to just
Yeah.
shut the fuck
So
up. Like,
so they have in Breath of the Wild, they have these like high tier weapon versions of weapons that you get from the champions that can break, but you do have the ability to reforge.
right.
So if you have this particular hammer that you get from the Gorons, if it breaks, that's okay. You go out and you get this other type of hammer that's a lesser type, but you also get a couple of these types of gems. You go to a craftsman and he can turn them back into that bigger weapon, right? And I think that's the perfect place to apply this, right? Is make those champion weapons, whatever that is in this new game, whatever level that is, make them the same as the Master Sword, where they just recharge. So I don't have to go find somewhere to recraft them, right? Like it's a cute part, like when you do it once, but when you have to do it like the third time for your favorite one of the champion weapons, it does lose its luster, right? Like in that regard. So like I think that's a perfect like way to balance out like the weapon degradation conversation.
Yeah. Or if it's like the dungeon items that you would get in the original Zelda games. Because I think that was a big point of contention with a lot of people, is that like you weren't getting the hook shot. You weren't finding the bow and arrow. You were given the Sheikah slate, and that gave you kind of the access to what all of those dungeon items would be early on in the game, so that there was no excuse for not being able to go anywhere you wanted to. And
Yeah,
that's
but
fine.
you did
It was
get
an
like,
interesting
but
way
you
to
did get
do
like
it.
climbing gear. Like
Yeah.
you did, there is unique shit in this game. That's another problem is that everybody's pissed that they didn't get a hook shot, and it's just like it's okay because you got other cool tools that don't degrade. Like you like various outfits that you got that'll give you certain abilities, like the ability to like stealth and things like that are core to the Breath of the Wild experience. There was no point in Breath of the Wild where I felt I needed to hook shot somewhere. So the fact that they didn't give me one didn't even register to
Yeah,
me.
of course. Well, especially when you can blow yourself up and then fly from it. like
Right.
like it definitely fit that way, but I think it's more the fact that it wasn't going through the dungeon and getting that serotonin rush of finding that dungeon item. Like everything, because of the nature of everything being open at the beginning, everything kind of, there was no real curve out in the game. I don't know. I'm trying to like parse together how people put it
I just think
together
I think the
with my
problem
own
no, I think the problem is
experiences.
that
Like,
people didn't appreciate taking the Zelda mentality and turning it into the meta game rather than the physical game in front of you, right? Because I think a lot of the same moments, the serotonin rush that people are looking for from those moments in Link to the Past, where they open a thing, they get the weapon of the thing, and then they know this is the thing I'm going to use to kill the boss, and sure enough, right, like that's the tool used to kill the boss. Like that gameplay loop still exists in Breath of the Wild, but it exists on a different level. That idea being that I have got to get this one particular item so that I can get through this particular dungeon so that I can get there, and I can only find it in this one other dungeon. Like that all exists in Breath of the Wild. It exists on this larger level of like you need to know this one thing about how you bomb yourself in this way while you've got the ability to fly from this particular point allows you to land on this particular thing, and boom, you can finally get into that dungeon you've been trying to get into. Like that gameplay loop does exist. It just isn't as spelled out or as clear as here is the item to go to that wall. Now take down that wall. Now go in and kill that guy. Like there is something to be said about people wanting Zelda to remain more straightforward. I think that is also something that I again, if you don't like that, Breath of the Wild's not the game for you. But I don't think that's going to be something. I don't think you'll be without a Zelda game like that for a while because I'm pretty sure after Tears of the Kingdom, I just can't see them sticking with a lot of this sort of stuff that makes Breath of the Wild so special, but clearly is such a hot button issue for Zelda fans. I just don't. I like it's become such a wild thing. It's like after Wind Waker, them taking the hard turn from the cartoony art style, right? Them realizing with Twilight Princess that they're gonna just go whole hog in the other direction. I feel like we're gonna see that same breakneck move with whatever the next game is because of all of this stuff. But don't expect that in Tears of the Kingdom, is all I'm saying.
yeah, I don't know. It was just an interesting thing. And then the final gameplay philosophy that I think links it, and it's definitely the one for me, is I don't want to use. I got this really strong thing, but I don't want to. I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to hold on to it until like it's the time to use it, and then eventually you get to the end of the game. Yeah,
That's RPG 101 is like I'm not going to use any of these health potions because I don't know when I'll need them. Wait, but
and then the credits roll, and it's like, oh, I guess did I never need them? Like what happened here?
or you die 100 times and somebody's just like use a fucking health potion and you're just like, no, what if I need them?
Oh, what if I need it against the final boss? This is the final boss. Well, but what if I need it like later in the fight?
What if there's another final boss? You can never tell it nowadays.
What if it has 4 freaking phases like Ultimisia?
Yeah.
Whoa, I don't know where that name came from. Woo! I've never even finished Final Fantasy VIII. That was scary, Siege. That was a scary moment for me. But I have other games on the docket. It's not just Ocarina of Time, but now that I can play it in 60 FPS and it is gorgeous, that's one of them. I got some other stuff that I'm excited about. Now, one of them I completed yesterday, if you'll indulge me to share the brief story of River City Girls 2 arcade mode mod. Because that was an interesting experience.
Are you really waiting for me to answer? Because like
I was trying to have a conversation. Yeah, no,
no, it's okay.
No, you don't want to hear about it? That's fine. What do you got, Sachin?
So what is arcade mode?
So this person, Muken is his name on Discord. And it's the River City Mall Discord. I don't know, like Discord is just a thing that I guess I'm using a lot more now. Has developed a mod that streamlines River City Girls 2 so that like if you exit a room, you don't have to go through like the 4 rooms to get to the next room where story happens. So it streamlines it in that way. It blocks off access to any other entrance. So you can only go the proper direction in things. So it makes it feel more like an arcade game as opposed to like the RPG elements of River City. I have some complaints about it. And it literally just released this past Wednesday. That's when it had been in beta for a while. Beta. the fuck is that, beta for a while, and
Well, they
then
want to
he
make it better, so they put it into beta.
so they put it into beta. Beta Boone, you know how that works from Pogan Lol. I hate myself for continuing this. But yeah, so a full release just came out on Wednesday, and even then, I played through it with a friend, and we ended up submitting a bug report because the graveyard kept like crashing. If one of us would fall into the graveyard, the game would just like into an open grave. The game would just stop working.
Oh,
It's just
I
like,
mean, you're
oh,
dead. I
okay,
don't understand. That's what happens. You fell into the grave. You probably broke your legs and died. They're
yeah,
just gonna bury you.
and that's fine. But the game just like not moving anymore.
Game over.
Like and no game over coming up. A couple of other issues is they've removed all healing items from the game, which makes the game a little bit more difficult. And it's fine that like you can't go to shops to buy healing items, but one of the bosses, like the first boss that you fight, after a certain attack, it leaves a healing item on the screen so that you can heal up after what is essentially a screen wipe attack. And so that not happening made that fight very difficult. And I guess like the way that it balances it, you have all the weapons, the attacks available from the beginning, which is also nice, and all of the characters are available from the beginning as well. So it was an interesting experience. But the bigger part about it, the reason why I wanted to talk about it is it also runs in 60 FPS. And the big problem with the game on consoles, and you know what, on Steam too, because not everybody wants to sign up for the beta program in order to have like an update applied to the game, is the game was built in Unity and it's supposed to be 60 FPS, but it runs in 30 FPS. Now, this was not an issue for me. I didn't even know about this until people were talking about it. And then I didn't truly understand it until playing it in 60 FPS
Video games
yesterday.
and frame rate scandals. Is there an older duo?
I don't know. Well, people are pissed because the game's now been out
I mean,
for.
as you should be. I want to make it clear, like, if a game is promising you that it's going to be doing this thing and it's not capable of doing that, like, somebody should answer for that promise, depending on the level at which that promise is made and all of that. I'm not saying you get to like sue them because Anna de Armas isn't in your movie, but like but like saying, hey, this isn't fucking cool. I'm gonna like blast you on Twitter or in the official Discord for this game. Like, I think that's fair. That's a fair reaction
Right.
to being promised
Yeah.
that.
And when within like a day of it releasing on Steam, they had pushed out a beta. You had to sign up for the beta program through Steam to have the 60 FPS working, but it is still waiting on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and Steam official. There's not hasn't been a Steam official patch at this point. And the Nintendo Switch version just had a patch rolled out that fixed the language error where if your languages were not set to the same thing, so if you were like listening to the Japanese voices but had English subtitles and everything else, it would make certain enemies invincible and
Oh
also able
God.
to kill you with one hit
Whoa,
because of how
what?
the
Programming's weird, man. Yeah, we forgot to code the languages properly, and so everybody's just a murderous, rampaging asshole.
yeah. So like that's another thing, and that one is fixed, but like it just got fixed on Nintendo Switch.
Was it Team Fortress 2 that had the pineapple story, right? I think it's Team
Possibly, I
Fortress
think
2.
it's Team
Somebody
Fortress
somebody can
2.
correct us on that. Where somebody, that game was out for so long that it went through many development teams, and one of the big things that certain development teams will do is they'll do tightening up and clean up work, right? They'll go through and get rid of any files that don't need to be there, make the game more efficient. And some efficiency worker one day was going through and found a pineapple JPEG that wasn't doing fuck all in a file, right? So he erases it like he's supposed to, and all of a sudden the game is just like crashing left and right, can't do fuck anything. Like it was like this like nightmare scenario. So they revert back and they try and figure out exactly what they erased that caused it, and they narrowed it down to the pineapple JPEG, but they've never in like the history, like the end of that story is they don't know why. Like nobody has ever been able to figure out why this one pineapple JPEG was like so detrimental to making sure the game ran properly.
That's insanity. God damn, that is insanity. I love the
Yeah,
internet sometimes. I
I
love
know.
coding and like just the stuff. But yeah, so that's the thing that just got fixed in the Nintendo Switch version, and that took a month for it to happen. And from way forward, it's because, well, we need to wait from the approval for Nintendo before it gets pushed out to you. And it's like, but at the same time, that's a huge issue. That makes your game unplayable. Because if you can't defeat enemies, and if they like flick your ear, you die. What
Yeah.
what are you supposed to do with that? Um, and also like if someone offered you a quest and you said I'll do it later, there was no later. So like
Yeah.
that was a soft lock where you could just not progress in the game. If you
Gross.
yeah.
Ah,
So like
man.
those are things that existed in it. So these people who are like, I'm upset that we don't have it running in 60 FPS yet, like they have a valid complaint there. I want it to be known. But I was able to beat the game 7 friggin' times across PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in both the Japanese release and the American release without issue in the 30 FPS. So I'll say that. But playing it yesterday with the 60 FPS patch as part of the arcade mode, it is night and day. Some of the scenarios that I thought were just like poor game design. Because you fight a boss who has a shield and you have to break the shield to hurt them. I've broken that shield 1 time in my 7 playthroughs on PlayStation between 4 and 5. I
Were you
broke
beating
that.
that boss otherwise?
Well, because there's other ways to attack.
Oh, there's other
So
phases.
there's
Okay,
other
okay.
phases, but the phases they launch out a bunch of projectiles, and you're supposed to use your special moves to break their shield, and then you can deal damage to them, heavy
Oh, so
damage
like a
to them.
precision move in which you need to be able to bounce an object flying at you in a certain speed.
Yeah, I mean you don't need to bounce the projectiles; it's avoiding the projectiles and dealing damage to their shield. Uh, I'm sorry if I did that the wrong way. And I did that yesterday, and one usage of a special attack broke that barrier. And I'm like, oh my god, is that has to be the 60 FPS of it because I'm actually doing the damage that's supposed to happen to the shield, and the shield is taking that damage. Like with the knife in the Resident Evil games, where every frame that it connects with the enemy, it does damage. So on
Yeah,
120, the knife melts enemies as opposed to 60 FPS. And that's why there's that whole disconnect in the speedrun and leaderboards
yeah,
of how fast your game is running.
yeah. It's wild, but like literally, like the math of the damage counter is based on the number of frames, and so if you can up the number of frames you're actually performing, you're upping the damage you're doing. Like that is. I mean, like in a weird way, like it makes sense why that's happening, but we like then we need to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, it was just like this thing. I'm like, we broke the barrier every time that it went up in the fight. We ended up beating the fight on the first try, and I'm like, this fight has been a stall point on a couple of my runs just because I feel like that's the point to deal big damage, and I could never break the shield. And then so seeing that, and then later on, the River City ransom mission where you have to go save 6 friends who have bombs tied to them, like the meter fills so slowly in the PlayStation version of the game. 60 FPS, oh, that filled right up. Like, probably because every frame it was filling it up as opposed to, I guess, every other frame in 30 FPS. And that's if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
If the way that it's calculated it's happening, because maybe it's happening every 4th frame or every other frame on the 60 FPS, so then on the 30 FPS it's happening every 4th frame.
Well, right,
So
and that's the other thing is like we're saying these numbers like these are standard steady numbers, but even these fluctuate,
yeah,
minuscule amounts, but depending on how the math is working out for how the damage is being calculated. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it makes total sense that damage would be tied to frame rate. It actually, like in a weird way, not that it makes sense and I forgive it. It makes sense why that's happening. Like you explaining it, like that totally clicks for me, and I'm mad about it.
well, you have every right to be mad about it is how I'm going to end that sentence, because it really took this thing where I'm like, I thought everybody who was complaining about the frame rate being like, this is unplayable to me and all this, I'm like, I think they're And it's based on my own experiences playing the game multiple times through, where I'm like, I didn't really notice that.
Well, because to be fair, there is an
To be
element in
fair,
that contingency of people that are just people being like, "Ugh, this runs at 59 frames most of the time instead of 60. I like this is the dog shit of most dog shit." And you're just like, "Calm down, man." Like some people out there are lucky they're getting 30. Like that element to it definitely exists in that community. So like, let's not act like that all of their sins are forgiven, right? Like, but but now that you have had this experience, I can see where more people have a legitimate problem for sure.
yeah, and that's just it. It just legitimized something to me that just seemed like sour grapes and yelling at clouds. But then,
Yeah.
like for the River City Ransom mission, like we sped right through it, and I'm just like, oh my god, this has always been very difficult because it feels like it takes forever to untie your friends.
I think the key word here
Yeah,
is optimization. Is as much as it sucks that it was that this damage thing exists, right? They should have optimized for what everybody was going to have, and that was clearly 30 frames per second,
well,
right? So like optimizing the attacks for that was probably the better choice because that's what they did is they chose to optimize for 60 frames per second, and then a majority of people couldn't hit that, and then it caused a lot of backlash, right? So like they clearly should have just optimized in the other direction. Now that would have then introduced the weird aspect of anybody running at 60 frames per second would have been fucking blasting through shit.
well, the weird thing is the issue seems to be a known issue with Unity as a game engine,
Yeah.
where because there are parts of the game that run in 60 FPS. So very clearly you can see the game was meant to run in 60 FPS. Like menus, weirdly, if you're in a menu it moves faster and it feels a little bit better. And this is again seeing it all where there's no like transition from 30 to 60 when you pause the game. Like it was this really interesting kind of experiment to see it go from the 30 FPS to the 60 FPS. But then Unity, even though it's supposed to be doing 60 FPS, will like on its back end drop it to 30.
Yeah.
Like it's just something in how Unity engine like creates the game that's been built in it is wild because you're
I mean,
right.
Unity's been around for a little bit now. I mean, like it could just be that like Unity just is not able to keep up right now. Like it needs to be updated or a new version or maybe moved on from. I don't know, but like yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I was
it's
trying to think of other games I've played on Unity to try and think of any other types of games that might be running into issues like this. But to be honest, I don't know many games that are running on Unity.
I mean,
I know that a lot of indie games do, but I don't know of a lot of games that I play on a regular basis are running on it.
yeah, it's it, and that's probably the issue is that it might be deprecated software or something like that. Because I will say the system that we played on yesterday was fucking ballsy.
Yep.
64 megabytes of RAM. It was on an NVMe drive. Like we shouldn't have crashing issues. Now the one in the graveyard, I experienced that on two separate of my own computers. So like
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, this is clearly a bug. This is a thing where like if someone falls in the hole, the game isn't sure what to do with it. Probably because of some bit of code in the mod to change everything. And that's fine. But like we would be in fights and the game would like just stall and stop moving. And it's
Yeah.
like the GPU is using 30% of its resources. Like the memory is not being touched. This is a problem with the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like that just this isn't an engine issue. This is just there is a bug. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's it. But if you have the means, if you do have the PC version of River City Girls 2, highly recommend that mod. And if you just like get me on Twitter or contact me however you contact me, I will like let you know how to get that because it made the game. We were able to play it in a casual setting. Somebody who had never played a River City game was able to sit down with me and we beat the game yesterday. And
Yeah.
that felt pretty good. Like in a way that I don't think even like you and I don't think we could get through River City Girls together. Just because of how much is involved in it. Like
Yeah.
exploration wise. Like even when I've done like online games, like the person ends up kicking me because they're trying to do things in a specific way, and I'm trying to do them in my specific way. And I'm just
I
like,
just yeah
it's
I think that this game, man, this series has just continued to just have these weird little problematic like community issues, and it's at some point this stuff is going to be building to a head of some kind, and I'm curious to see what that is.
someone put in the official Discord, and this is the last thing that I saw there, and then we'll move on to other things. Every River City Girls game has released with like a big issue, be it the betrayal secret ending of the first game, the traditional like Japanese translation in River City Girls 2 that was also very Americanized and not a one for one translation of the game. It just
Yeah.
didn't have Kyoko and Masako talking like their counterparts in the American game, but it very much was not like a one to one adaptation or interpretation. The way translation is the word that I just forgot right now. That they represented it as. So that was a whole issue. And now this frame rate issue that like someone goes into the Way Forward Discord every day and says River City Girls 2 is still not running at 60 FPS. To the fact that like people from the thing are like, please stop doing this. And it's like, on the one hand, it's kind of annoying that this person does. I get why you do it. On the other hand, it's making you guys say, we're working on it. Stop doing this. It's getting your attention. And that's what that person is doing it for.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and they're voting with their, and this is someone who's paid for the game. And like, that's how they're choosing to vote for the fact that they paid for what is unfinished product.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how unfinished that product was until I got to see how the game properly optimized functioned.
Shit. Did you know Unity is almost 20 years old?
That
Like
tracks.
obviously they put
Yeah.
updates out. Like I'm not saying that what they're making games on is 20-year-old software, but like as a software, it has been around since 2005.
Yeah, that so it's 18 years old if anybody wants to
Yeah.
be a jerk about it. Leonardo DiCaprio would still date it.
I mean, like for like the big game, I think that I'm realizing runs on it is Rust. Like for anybody in the Twitch and YouTube communities, like the game Rust has been a long running content creation game for a lot of streamers, and that's like the big like 3D like let's push this engine as far as we can game that uses Unity is Rust. Then a couple other games that are on it are like Ori and the Blind Forest and Hearthstone run on it and stuff like that. Like so there are definitely popular games out that are using Unity, so they definitely are supporting it. So it's not like there's not some like new version of that engine out there. It's just it is 20 years old, so I wonder if we're starting to kind of just hit a wall, at which point that software can be pushed. You know, maybe the next maybe the next one of these games needs to be on a different piece of software.
Yeah. It's just been interesting. How about you? You got any other things that you want to chat about, Sejan?
Oh, it's been crazy. It's Sundance week this week, so
Yeah,
so
so that's
we're getting the house ready for that. And so I'm just kind of trying to wrap up some loose ends with like watching some stuff. Been watching Wednesday, and we're gonna finish that up this week. Been digging into going back and rewatching some stuff. You and I did The Godfather a couple of weeks back for a special episode for the show, and that kind of just sparked watching some older movies. Ended up somehow going so far down the barrel down the down the rabbit hole that we ended up watching The Wolfman the other night.
nice.
That movie holds up. That movie is like
1936
solid.
Wolfman?
It is definitely the Lon
Lon
Chaney
Chaney?
one, where and Bella Lugosi, who I forgot plays Bella, the problematically called Bella the Gypsy, but the Romani character that's in it is played by Bella Lugosi, and he just uses his name.
Yeah. That's a
Oh
great
man,
movie. I saw that when I was hyper young. I loved it. And every time I've seen it since, oof.
it definitely has crappier sensibilities in some ways in which like, you know, he just shows up to town, spies on this woman through a telescope, and then what, and then like creepily like hits on her, and she's like, ooh, swoon, like that kind of shit is gross. But in terms of like look and like the makeup work and the story beats and all that sort of stuff, like there's some good stuff in that. And like we're sitting there the whole time and wondering, is this a movie that is anti-religion, anti-science, maybe not anti any of it? Because for anybody that's never seen this specific version of the Wolfman story, technically not the first werewolf film. I did not know that Universal produced. They produced a movie called Werewolves of London like years before that. But this is like the quintessential one for the Universal monsters, right? Like is the Wolfman, and it's all about a man that has not seen his family in 20 years. He's been in America and they live in like some European like town, and he comes home after 20 years and is about to take over the family estate, and then goes out one night with a young lady and her friend, and they go to see this traveling Romani group that's come through so that they can like, you know, do what people did in that those times and probably exploit the fuck out of them, but whatever. Like they go to get their fortunes read and all that, and they get told a terrible fortune, and then they get attacked by a wolf on the way home, and one of them gets killed, and he's left bitten and injured, and you know becomes a werewolf, right? But this whole like underlying subplot that's going on is that his father, who has called him home after 20 years, is this extremely religious man, and so he's going through all of these changes and feeling all this weird stuff in his body, and he's just like, I think I'm a murderer. I think I've been killing these people, and his father the whole time is like, God will sort this out. God will sort this out. But there's also within the group of characters, there's also a couple of science-minded men who are also like, and when I say science-minded, I mean specifically like psychological, like they are definitely psychologists and psychiatrists, like discussing, you know, maybe drugs. No, not drugs. We can do this through simple therapy. And like what this man needs is to discuss Freud with us and talk about his mother and all of this stuff. So there's this weird like back and forth between, you know, oh, there's no such thing as werewolves. It's clearly science. And then there's another group that's like, no, there's no such thing as werewolves. It's clearly God. And so like there's these three stories kind of just floating around in that admittedly hour and 10-minute movie. It's not even that long of a
Yeah.
film. So like it's a wild amount of stuff going on that really gets you like talking and thinking. And you know, there's nonsense beats that go nowhere. There's this whole thing about like how he's given a special charm with a wolf face and a pendant on it, and that's going to be really meaningful and protect him. And at some point, he gives it to the woman he loves instead. And like it all amounts to nothing. It never comes up again. Like it's this really weird lost storyline is that he's given this charm that goes nowhere. So like it's not a perfect movie, but for a movie that at this point is almost 100 years old, like pretty solid film still.
Yeah, that's interesting. I should revisit that one. I like that movie a lot. I have a lot of good memories of it. And that wolf charm didn't go anywhere. It's actually one of the accessories in River City Girls too. Just because I want to be the asshole who somehow ties these two topics together. But there's an exact representation of that. That makes you stronger at night because of the
Yeah.
day-night cycle in that game.
Awesome. Yeah, but it's amazing because he's given it, and you think, oh, what is that going to do? Is that going to stop him or what? And then he gives it away like to this woman that he loves, and you're just like, you're an idiot. Like it was given to you to stop you from becoming a werewolf. Why would you give this to her? And then later on, she goes out and just gets attacked. Like spoiler alert. But like the entire time, you're like, what about the charm? I thought the whole point was she was given the charm. This means nothing, and they never talk about it. They never address it, and you're just like, what happened to the charm?
Oh, old movies. Like Frankenstein. I love Frankenstein, but that
Yeah.
movie's just like, what is happening? Like,
I
come
I
on.
mean like Frankenstein is watchable for the visuals. Like I
Yeah.
think that's the other big thing is that this one, I think the thing that hit me was how good the script and the dialogue really were for what I was expecting. Again, to be clear, there's still some beats that like things go nowhere, and I don't love some of the dialogue between him and the female characters in the movie and things like that. But placing it in the time period that it's in and looking back on it almost 100 years later and being able to say like, man, there's like solid storytelling technique going on here that like you don't always give these kinds of movies credit for, you know, just because they're old, and old things need to go out and die. Right.
We need this remade with
Man.
Jack Nicholson as a lawyer.
But I mean, it kind of speaks to some of the stuff that goes on with like the remakes and reimaginings that we see all the time. And again, that's not new to Hollywood. Even this movie, as it is a retelling of of wolf
Of a
like
werewolf
werewolf
drinking a
stories,
pina
right?
colada at
Yeah.
Trader
So like,
Vic's, apparently.
yeah. So there's this. So but the idea that they remake this one with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins, and they add like a whole weird like genetic element to it. I don't know if you remember that movie, but there's like a big
Yep.
werewolf fight at the end of it between him and his father in that one, because it turns out that the wolfism is a genetic disorder in that one. It's a really weird
Well,
twist
that
in that
feels
story.
like it's inspired by Teen Wolf, where the
Well, right.
werewolfism is
Yeah.
genetic,
Yeah.
and Jason Bateman's boxing. Wait, that's Teen Wolf 2.
Well, but the Teen Wolf, but the Teen Wolf thing is really interesting because there really is watching the Wolfman. Teen Wolf is in some ways, I think, a better remake of the Wolfman than the 2017 Wolfman. I think is what it is with Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
I think Teen Wolf is a better redo of that story because it really addresses a lot of the same beats that the original one does. In like, this is all about the instinct of man, and this is the natural thing within you, and all of the weird science stuff that I was saying is that they debate in this hour of a film is like they talk about the idea of like maybe there's no wolf, but maybe you're manifesting this idea of a wolf because of these things about your masculinity, right? Which is exactly what gets addressed in Teen Wolf when werewolfism is used as a metaphor for puberty, right?
Hmm. And playing basketball real good.
Well, right. Well,
Because
everybody knows that once you go through puberty, that's when you either develop those skills or you give it up.
and then I like how Teen Wolf was remade as Air Bud, where what if he goes full dog?
Yeah, what if he's just a dog the whole time?
Ain't nothing in the rules says a dog can't play basketball. I can't wait till we cover Air Bud
Yeah,
on
that
this
was my
show.
favorite Bela Lugosi line ever.
He said it with a bit of a problematic accent, but what are you gonna do?
And some weird eyebrow makeup. I don't know what.
It is,
Man loved his
yeah.
eyebrows.
I love that Bela Lugosi is in it though. Like it really speaks to what Universal was doing with those monster movies.
Well, it hit me like a brick because I was, all expecting Lon Chaney and all that, and I love the makeup work on him for the like one scene at the end of the movie. But then to see Bela Lugosi come up and to see the character name, I almost slapped myself. I was like, how have I never picked up on this? How is this not like a thing like stored in my head?
Good point. Jeez, it's fun. Old movies are fun. Watch old movies. Don't just watch new things.
Right.
And
Well, and
yeah,
like all of this is to kind of like, like I said, tying up some loose ends, like wrapping up some stuff that I wanted to get some watching done before we get into just a week of just mind-numbing, just like weird new stuff.
yeah. Personally, I'm excited to finally get to watch Violent Night because it came to Peacock, and then Tar comes to Peacock this Friday. And I've wanted to see Tar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I imagine I'm not because
Tar.
it should probably be Tear because like Pokemon, it should be like Tear. It should have the A pronouncing itself. So Tear.
I'm not gonna even pretend to say that yes or no to that, Dev. I can't.
Well, the A in
yeah.
Tar has the same accent mark over it as the E in Pokemon.
Yes, but they are two different languages completely, so those accents could be doing entirely different things.
That's true. I guess I'm thinking of how it approaches in English. Well, aren't Pokemon
Right.
called Pocket Monsters in Japan? They're not called Pokemon.
I look, man. I like again. So now we're talking about how some American made up the word Pokemon, and we're going to use that accent as a rule for the English language going forward. I don't think so.
That's a good point. It's also weird because you say the O, so like they treat the E like it's a silent E, but then with the accent, because poke, you say the O in poke. That's weird. I've never really thought about the etymology of the term Pokemon. And then
Yeah,
you say it's a made up word. All words are made up, man.
yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Oh,
More of
man.
the story is I do not know the accent with which you say tar, but I
Yeah.
do believe that is the way that I've heard people refer
I've
to
always
it.
referred to it as
So
Tar. So I'm excited to see it, especially after that one woman who thought that she was real and then was disappointed to find out afterwards that it was a made up story for the movies.
for the movies, yeah. No, what did Scorsese say? I think Scorsese was the one that claimed that Tar was the film that made him believe in film again. So
Yeah, so
it definitely high praise there. So I mean, like I'll be honest, it hits me as Oscar bait. but I, like maybe I'm missing something, so I'll have
It
to
can
give it
hit
a
me as
go.
here's the thing: if Kate Blanchett's in it, I don't care if it's Oscar bait. I love her. She's
Yeah.
such a good actor. The stuff that I have seen her do and what she has delivered, I cannot wait to see her be a symphony conductor.
I'll be honest. I One of the best movies she's ever made is one of those few movies that I don't think I can ever recommend to anyone ever. But she does a phenomenal job in Blue Jasmine.
Blue Jasmine is excellent, but I'm right there with you with I don't know if I could recommend it. What I will recommend, because I tell frickin' everybody to watch it, and granted, I'm a huge fan of Richard Linklater, so take it with the grain of salt that comes with that. Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Was excellent. That
Yeah.
movie was so good, and it's a lot of like what Kate Blanchett brings to that role. Carol, I like Carol too.
Yeah, I know. I'm happy to see something like Tar out there getting the recognition that it's getting because like I love that when movies hit and everybody can kind of gather around it. Just the type of movie that it is not a Seagen brand of film, and like I rarely step out of my comfort zones nowadays for that sort of stuff. So like I have not really given Terror much of my attention because my initial read on it was like, yep, this is definitely a movie for movie people, and I am not that kind of person right now.
Yeah, I guess like that's why I haven't done Fablemans. That's something I do want to talk about on the show. So this past week over Jeopardy, it was Steven Spielberg stuff, and the
Yeah.
$1,000 clue. The response was, "What is the Fablemans?" And nobody on the set was able to get that question correct. Everybody missed it. Here's an interesting fact about that. That episode was filmed 5 days after that film had released. So like it's not entirely off the mark that these people, one of whom has been recording Jeopardy episodes, right?
Yeah.
And like
Have
had
not gotten
not
out to the movies.
had not gotten out to the movie that came out 5 days earlier, or maybe had not paid it any attention because it's so weird to track movies in the post pandemic.
Well, right, yeah. I was going to say the big thing about the Fablemans in this regard for me is I'm probably in that boat of like I didn't know about it until it was like a thing, and then everybody was talking about it, and I was like, oh, cool, new Steven Spielberg movie, and then like looked into it and realized that like it may very well be like his magnum opus. Like
Yeah,
it is like it's like his origin story wrapped up in like his heart is just apparently like on the page, like, and it's not just him, it's Tony Kushner wrote it with him, right?
yeah, like it's
Yeah, it's like a fucking like it's a hard hitting like again Oscar Beatty style film. Like I couldn't believe that I hadn't heard about it until it was like out either.
yeah,
Like and it's so wild that this big huge film that's firing on all cylinders is apparently a wonderful film. So it's not like they were trying to bury it. It's just like was nowhere to be found, and now suddenly it's out and everybody loves it.
yeah. But it was like everyone was like, how do they not know this? It's such a big deal. And it's like, well, you need to remember that Jeopardy is taped in advance and it was recorded 5 days after the movie released. But the scarier thing about it, right, is we talk about The Simpsons and how they're able to predict the future. Like, that
Hmm.
is Jeopardy totally rolling the dice that movie might be significant enough 2 years later when this episode airs.
But I would point out that to their credit, apparently everyone that sees it swears by it being just this phenomenal piece
Right,
of cinema.
exactly.
So like
Yeah, but had
yeah,
the Clue crew seen it, or did they just pick like the recent movie that Steven Spielberg released?
yeah,
Like
I
to
don't
put
know.
it under the $1,000 clue is really interesting too, because like same year movie that should maybe be the $200 clue, right? Not the big money on the board. It's really just made me look at Jeopardy in a whole different way. But also, as this movie that I didn't get it right, as somebody who even knows what it's about, because of the descriptor, it's like, that could literally be any Steven Spielberg movie. Like, what the hell are you doing with that?
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's what it is. It's like he's put himself into other movies. So the magnum opus, his origin story, it sounds real familiar to other things that he's done. It was an interesting moment culturally that occurred over the last week that I just wanted to give a little time to. And I felt bad for not getting it, but I got all the other ones. So credit where it's due.
Yeah. Fucking yeah. You're not kidding though about the post pandemic like marketing of film and I mean even to that point, video games and television and all of this stuff. Like there's just so much insanity going on the streaming front with the way that shit's getting canceled left and right. Uh the amount of like films that have been coming out on streaming that have also been in theaters or I thought were going to be in theaters but were on streaming or vice versa. Like Glass Onion, like I got really thrown for a loop that Glass Onion ended up actually being in a theatrical release because it had been so talked about as being this Netflix thing that they had bought the rights for the two sequels. Um
I don't know.
yeah.
It's been great. Like there was some movie that like I saw a release date for, and I'm like, how has that not come out yet? I saw trailers for that movie.
Edie Falco talking about Avatar.
Yeah, like it's just that
I thought the movie
what?
had already come out and flopped. Yeah. Well, and,
It's
and it leads to that sort of mentality, right? Where you think like, I thought the movie had already come out, and since I didn't hear anybody talking about it, I just kind of assumed it wasn't any good. And now you've already kind of locked that thought into your head, whether or not you're gonna like how much of yourself, you're gonna lend to that thought is up to you, but you can't deny that it's there, right? Like you've already thought this movie came out and it was a flop. How do you rewire that initial thought, right? Like first impressions are important for anything, including film, right?
yeah,
So we talk about this all the time with like the context in which you sit down and watch a movie. What happens when that context is built on a foundation of I thought this movie had already come out and just not done well. Like
yeah. Like Across the Spider-Verse was the one where I'm like, how has that movie not come out yet? Like I
well, to be
saw
fair, it was supposed to come out and it was supposed to only be one movie, and then it just got
and then
so
it got
big that
big
they
and everything
they
that's
pushed
happened
it
with
and then
it.
they
But
split
it's
it
just
and then
like
they
I just saw a trailer for it and I'm like, figures from this film are available to purchase right now.
Yeah, well, and that's the other part of it, right? Is not only is nobody sure how to market or push anything anymore because nobody wants to encourage you to go out and sit in a theater right now because even though everybody's in this country is acting like the pandemic's over, we will be the first to always remind you it is not, right? And so like there's that weird level to it. Then you add to that the fact that nobody's sure when a movie's going to come out anymore. Marketers are probably scared to put a date on posters or even put a preview out because they're going to find out in 2 weeks that the movie's been pushed back a year just because like HBO needs to meet a tax deadline or like another pandemic swing is going to hit and the theaters are going to close or like what is going to happen next that's going to force this movie to not work, right? I mean, I think that what you're talking about is part reaction to the pandemic and part reaction to the Hollywood floundering after the pandemic, like them like not being able to figure out how to sell a DC or Marvel movie like or that kind of shit, like is scaring a lot of people.
Yeah, it's been real interesting. I don't know. Cause like figures like the Super Mario Brothers toys in the Happy Meal, that should not be a January thing when the movie comes out in April. But the
Yeah.
movie was already supposed to have been out, and the toys were supposed to be part of the second wave of people going to see the movie.
Of the whole like, hey, this is a dead time and this is a good family film. Like, let's
Yeah,
remind you to like take your kids to go see Super Mario again, right? Like yeah. And nope, it turns out that they're going to be this weird like lost memory in everybody's mind by the time the film actually happens.
dude, the ability which I have been able to get, I have almost every Happy Meal toy for the Super Mario Brothers movie, and other Nintendo stuff, that's just not the case at all.
Yeah.
Like it goes so fast.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of different things here. And first of all, again, McDonald's, like, I don't know too many people that are going to McDonald's regularly anymore.
Right.
Like after the pandemic, like the idea of bringing your kid to go and get a Happy Meal has kind of reverted back to what it was way back in like the 90s for me, where like it is such a special treat now that like, that I don't think it's happening as much. And then you add to that like the movie not being out, I don't think anybody's thinking about it. It's weird. Like they keep marketing departments everywhere must be scrambling and must be constantly like kicking themselves for the kinds of weird choices and early kind of decisions that they've had to make that are really just biting them in the ass now because everything is happening on the fly so much nowadays.
Yeah, it's something I don't know, and it's just and we're talking about it, and we should probably drop it because this has been a real marketing episode. I love when we do these types of things, but it's starting to depress me,
Eh,
like real
Usually
bad.
time to pull the ripcord then.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
just start getting sad.
we're ready to
20,
go.
2023, the year I don't let the say report get sad. I'm stopping this shit right now.
But it is like, and that's because everywhere I look, it's what I see, and it really came from that people being so mad about the Fablemans, and it's just being like, well, they swung, and yeah, I'm sorry that these three people, like, who were planning for Jeopardy, didn't think about a modern movie. Like,
I mean, also, what was it? It was $1,000 question out of an entire game of Jeopardy.
exactly,
Like,
yeah.
you know how many times those questions get like lost in the wind?
Yeah, and it was in something that also was talking about the 45 days of Liz Truss. And it's like, yeah, that's something that's significant to us 2 months later. But to those people, I feel bad because, like, she had just stepped down, like, right around the time that they're taping that. So,
Yeah.
like, it is hyper current events for them. Where,
Yeah,
like,
I do still think it's fair game. I do
oh,
want to
I
point that out.
agree that I think it's
As
fair
much as
game.
you can say, hey, this thing only came out 5 days ago, I don't think it's an unfair question. I'm just not surprised that they didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. What has surprised me most is these people, like, oh my God, it's a Steven Spielberg. How did you not know that? And it's like, well, let's just consider this one thing, right?
Well, people love doing that shit though,
Yeah, it's
man.
true.
They
It's
they learn
true.
about a thing one day, the next day they love to be the expert on it. That's the way we all do that.
Everyone's a fucking expert.
You ever, I mean, like, like this happens all the time in my life with cooking, right? Is I learn about like a new ingredient, and I'll call myself out on this. I will learn about a new ingredient, like we just started making seaweed salads, so I've
Love
been
seaweed.
learning the various ways that you make seaweed salad, and now like I see it on a menu somewhere, and I will talk out my ass like I know what I'm talking about with it, even though like I've really only been looking into it for like a week, and these are like recipes that are some of these recipes that I've been looking at are no joke like hundreds years
Hundreds of
old.
years old, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, well, obviously, of course, you would do it this way because that's the way that they would do it. Like, I'm some type of like Eastern historian, Eastern culture historian. Oh man,
All right. So the last thing I want to talk about, and this is brief, because I'm not ready to share my full thoughts on that '90s show, but I am ready to share the one thought I've been having about that '90s show, and my special mind when it comes to dates and time is not built for watching a show like that '90s show
I
at
mean,
all,
I feel like
Season.
you would have felt the same way about that '70s show. There were plenty of times where they would mention like we're gonna go see Star Wars, and everybody's like, Star Wars didn't come out for like 2 years, guys. What are you talking about? But like. That's par for the course with those. I will say this, that '70s show excelled as far as a '70s tribute in being only that, just a tribute. They never married themselves to specific things unless it was like a really important episode, like detrimental to the episode that this thing occurred. Like for instance, like the finale, right? Like New
Yeah.
Year's and rolling over to like just as like a prime example, right? So by never really marrying themselves to a specific type of like or date in the '70s, like it allowed them to just do '70s things. But there were fashion choices and furniture and shit all over that show where like, well, they talk about this like it's 1974, but this thing came out in 1979, so that Kitty wouldn't own that dress yet or some shit like this is nothing new to this show. This is also nothing new to any period based. Like this happened with the Wonder Years. This happened with
Yeah. Well, what I do say is that, like, we're in a post Goldberg society now, and the whole it was 1980 something. So like, there's vagary from the outset, so that any anachronism, like, we understand that we're being anachronistic, but we didn't marry it to a specific year. That '90s show starting out on July 3rd, 1995, and every intro having July 1995 written in the corner in that way that, like, video footage looked. It is just like that reminder of, like, this is where we have set this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean
Yeah.
they've done themselves no favors by anchoring themselves to a specific date. But the idea being that there's going to be like yes, anachronistic bullshit around just to invoke the sense of the '90s is like is gonna happen.
But
And if
then
that's not something you could watch, like that's cool.
I've
Don't watch
watched
that
the whole
'90s show.
series. I've watched through the whole series at least one time. I don't know if I'll do it again. But then, like, the thing that bothers me is it's like, it'd be one thing if they're like, oh, this, like, because they used a song that wasn't released until October of 1995, and I'm like, but I don't know that it's diegetic, right? Like, if this is just a song that they're playing because it's from the '90s, I don't mind that. If they, like, turned on the radio and this song were playing, it'd bother me a little bit more. But then the ones that really, like, got under my skin was them being at the video store and The Lost World being on the shelf. because it's like that's just background stuff. You guys didn't need to put that there. And it's next to 2 copies of Jurassic Park. Just get another copy of the regular Jurassic Park.
Or they just put a bunch of movies on a shelf and thought this will be out of focus. Who cares? Which happens a lot.
I know,
I think that's the thing is the kind of work you're talking about, the kind of meticulous work you detail work you're talking about is the kind of shit that elevates certain filmmakers, and I would even say like film specifically. TV rarely gets to a point where it gets to be like that. When it is celebrated. Like, so you're looking for like award-winning worthy attention to detail in the backgrounds of that 90s show on Netflix. I just want to make it clear
Yep.
that that's the scenario that we're describing here. That the reason that you have a problem with that 90s show is that it doesn't have a like Tony award-winning set designer there to meticulously do the dramaturgical research for the video store backdrop that they're going to have for this 5-minute scene that's going to be fuzzy because it's focused on the cute teens in front.
It's not, I mean, they're into video stuff for long enough, but I get where you're coming from. I mean, I guess it's also main character syndrome a little bit, where I feel like this is a shot at me, the guy who worked in the video store.
And they're personally trying to offend you by putting out movies that wouldn't exist.
Seavon, that it becomes a personal attack when Hackers is available. You know, Hackers, Devin Decker's probably favorite movie, like actual
came out in like
favorite
1994, didn't it?
Came out September 15th, 1995 in theaters. Okay. So unless they got the Spaceball instant video technology where it's released on cassette before it's even finished making, it's crazy that it's on there. Like, that's somebody saying, oh, Hackers came out in 95. We can put that on the shelf. It is prominent.
Yes. They went to Wikipedia, they pulled up a bunch of movies that came out in 1995 and made sure that those were on the new release shelf. That is the amount of research that I would do.
Well, I hope not. I hope not, Seavon. Look up movies from 1994. Don't look up movies from 95.
They won't be on the new release shelf directly at the front of the store when the kids walk in.
It's not even a new release shelf. It's a shelf behind the counter, like just random movies. It felt like an attack on Devin Decker. That's all I'm saying. No, but other than that, the show is perfectly serviceable. I don't think I was ever the biggest fan of that 70s show, but it is something that I wanted to. That was the one that really just dug into me. And it's because of like my interests and my life and my experiences that a video store is going to hit the way that it hit for me. But
I mean, the detail work going on in the background of doing any type of period piece, right? Like, I love that this is what's offending you is like the 1990s, because traditionally you hear this kind of shit from people that watch like Jane Eyre or something, and then they're like, oh, this is supposed to be like the 1840s, but this type of piece didn't exist until the 1880s. Like that the anachronistic nature of period work is not new.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. There's the reason that we have a term for it, right? That we can apply to it, that we can say that they're anachronisms. But it was just, I guess, what really hit from it, right? And it's just the admission before we send this one off to the vault and to the listeners, is the fact that, like, stuff from my life that I have personal firsthand knowledge of is now considered, like, period piece worthy on, like, kind of a global scale. I don't think I was prepared for it. And, like, even like I asked you and I've asked other people, is this what watching that 70s show was like for our parents? And I mean, and apparently it was. Like,
yeah, not Dazed and Confused, because Dazed and Confused is the 80s, right?
76.
Spoilers,
we're going to do Dazed and Confused as a very special episode this year, right? It's
I feel like, isn't there a Linklater one that takes place in like a 90s high school? That, like, maybe I'm misremembering.
So there's the 90s, that Jonah Hill movie that I haven't seen. Linklater did Boyhood, which has, like, is that kid growing
no. I'm talking like a Dazed and Confused, like, we're gonna look back like 10 years ago and do like I can't think of the movie right now, and maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe I'm making this up.
He did Everybody Wants Some.
I think
which is
something like Can't Hardly Wait. But the thing is Can't Hardly Wait was made in the late 90s, about the late 90s, right? Right. Same with like something like Go, right? But that idea of those movies being like retro now. I mean, I had this conversation about 10 Things I Hate About You the other day, like where that is considered, a classic retro film now.
Yeah.
Like that is when we were at this point in the 90s, we were looking at stuff from the late 70s like it was classic cinema, like, oh my God, the
Yeah.
pinnacle of historical film. And I'm sure that our parents were like ready to strangle us for having these same conversations.
I mean, maybe not about The Godfather though, but yeah, who knows? Maybe.
Talking about it as that old movie, The Godfather. Who watches old movies?
Oh
Even though it
God,
was only 20 years
it
old.
was
And
20
if
years
somebody
old.
said that to you now about
Oh,
something from the 90s,
Encino Man. Oh, my heart. The Adam Sandler stuff. The fact that our Adam Sandler podcast is literally a film history podcast. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, no, it's I don't want to look in this window anymore, Sejin. Close
Yeah,
it.
no.
Take me home, spirit, please.
Well, it's an interesting idea that like going back to something like the 70s, it like it was so far enough away from our mentality that it did become kind of this cultural touchstone for people our age. I know you said you didn't watch it much, but it was like it was huge in like my friend groups. Like part of that was because it would come on in like the nightly cycle with like Simpsons reruns and stuff. That 70s show was also on that docket. So it was like you were kind of watching it just tangentially, and then eventually you found yourself like really getting into it. And then we all kind of hit that point where we all kind of got into sitcoms for a second. Like some people chose Friends. I think some people like this was the time when some people really latched onto like The Office and things like that. But some people, in our group, like they latched onto that 70s show. There's a reason why the Netflix has deemed it worthy to go back to and make that 90s show. But I'd be very curious to talk to people that are in their like early college years, end of high school now, watching that 90s show and seeing if they latch onto that stuff as much as we did looking at something from 20 years previously from for us, 30 years previously for us. It'd be really interesting. I have a funny feeling they won't. I don't feel like they are pander is not the right word, but I don't feel like they connect to this kind of stuff the same way that we did. Like that itch for that nostalgia for a time we didn't even exist in. Like I just don't think that exists in younger kids now. Um, the crazier thing for me with that 90s show, just to kind of wrap this up and to really talk about how old we are, is I can't watch that show because they look like children. And I feel like this is probably the same thing our parents were saying watching that 70s show is like, these are
Well,
just
probably
kids.
not. Probably not, because the only person who was teenaged in that 70s show was Mila Kunis, because that was like
Yes.
that whole issue of like
Yes,
she lied
and I
about her
remember when that
age.
70s show started and Mila Kunis was like the heartthrob for people our age.
Yeah,
But
because of that.
but
Like,
right, right. But if a 40-year-old were talking about it, and now I'd be like, that's weird that you're latching on to the 16-year-old that's on set, right? Like the there is a there is a definite way in which I watch that 90s show that is different than the way that I watch that 70s show. And a lot of it has to do with yeah, this is from 30 years ago, but they're just like me. I don't have that feeling now. I'm not watching these kids thinking they're dealing with the same things I'm dealing with. Like I'm not at
well,
that point in my life.
so it's twofold. The one thing is though is that the cast is actually all teenagers. They're all age appropriate, which is something very different. As to have like 20-year-olds playing 16-year-olds the way that they did with that 70s show. That
Mhm.
is like just representative of how Hollywood has changed and how acting has changed. But the other thing is the show that
Well, and not just but also material like the ways it doesn't matter how good of an actor they are. One of the big reasons why they used older people for the kids on that 70s show is they were also doing a lot of stuff like, smoking weed storylines in the 90s. Like in the late 90s, they were putting on TV these teens from the 70s smoking weed. They were playing it very safe by having older people around for the more adult plot lines that were coming up on that show. And I feel like we have in the last 20, 30 years really come around to the fact that like no, if we feel like this is something that teens are doing in their life, we should have teens portraying it. Like, it doesn't help having Jason Priestley come in to do the cheating storyline. Like, that's not gonna feel real to kids, right?
Yeah. So I mean, so that's the one thing where you look at them and they're younger. The other thing, and this is what I realized watching it, we're not going to feel the kind of connection that maybe our parents felt to this stuff until the 2000 show comes out, because that's when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
We weren't teenagers in the 90s. So the stuff that they're dealing with, I mean, did you go to a rave in the 90s? when raves
No,
were new. Like,
no, but I didn't, but I actually do. My cousin who was 2 years older than me was. So
yeah,
so there was definitely elements of like, no, I was not going, but like I was very aware of that culture. So
yeah,
like it's not like I'm like missing the joke.
exactly. I'm not missing the joke. I was aware of the culture, but it's this really interesting thing of like, but when I was a teenager, these aren't the things that I was doing. So like, I need to wait for that
Oh,
show.
when we
That's
were
when we were
teenagers in the
teenagers.
2000s, we definitely had friends that were, I mean, I have friends now that still do like rave night
Oh
EDM
yeah,
shit.
of course.
Like,
And that's
so
and
like that's the other thing is also the rave thing maybe is a bad example because that's a thing that it still persists even to this day. So like that's not a 90s thing, you know?
right, but the whole storyline is like, ooh, a rave. This sounds like something new and interesting. Oh, I would
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it, like the way that they approach it, and like to us, it's like old hat because you wouldn't have it. Like maybe I don't know what you would do for the 2000 show for them as teenagers in 2000. Maybe them just like not being depressed about 9/11 having happened 4 years earlier.
No,
Like I don't,
you'd have them going to not Ozfest, but what's the pop
oh,
punk one
Warped
there?
Tour.
Warp Tour. You'd have them
Yeah,
doing you'd have a Warp Tour episode, right? Like
yeah.
that's
And I mean, it's a,
Gravity Games, X Games episode or some shit, you know?
the internet and Homestar Runner stand in.
Following somebody on like a reality show that
Yeah.
they all get into or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's what would be interesting is to see the perceived representation of our teenage years. Like we're still weirdly too young to be
You couldn't
nostalgic
you couldn't
about it.
even watch that 90s show without feeling like it was ruining everything by getting the movies wrong. You think in a time period where you were even more aware of your surroundings that that you're gonna be able to
Oh yeah,
tolerate it?
no, it's gonna be hell for me. But that's what all I'm just saying is that like we still don't have ours. Our generation still doesn't have our show like this. This is for Gen Xers. It truly is
Yeah.
for Gen Xers.
I
The
remember it was
show.
9/11 and you and I went to go see Chuck and Larry in theaters. It was such a great night. And then we learned.
Wow, that was just like mean what you just did there. I loved it. I loved everything about. I mean, like the fact of the matter is, we should start writing it. Right? We should start writing what will be the Goldbergs for our generation.
Yeah.
It was Y2K or something, and the computers.
And the metrosexuals were out in full force.
Oh gosh, the metrosexual episode. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, we weirdly did a lot of current event stuff with what our entertainment was, in ways that I don't know. It's this episode's getting a little long in the tooth, right? So, anything else you want to add before we send this one away?
No, I mean, everybody keep your ears to the ground with what's going on with Sundance. There's some really interesting stuff that I've already seen previews for things that are going to be premiering at Sundance for them being available in other places like Amazon Prime and things like that. And it's a little weird. I noted this last year that like Sundance was losing a little bit of its like indie magic for me. Like I'm sure people have been saying this for years, so I'm not, this is not some revelation, but it's hitting me even harder right now this year
Yeah, no, I
because
it's
they've changed up the way that you do like the online viewing and all that sort of stuff. And then, like I said, there's stuff going into this that's already got like production, like what's the word I'm looking for?
it's
But
already
like
got distribution deals. It's not trying to like
distribution, yeah,
sell
yeah, yeah. It's already
itself.
got distribution. So like, why are they coming to a festival? It's a wild kind of time right now for Sundance trying to figure its own shit out too. So yeah.
Yeah. And there's the central thesis of this episode. Everybody's just trying to figure their shit out. And that's what Season 7 is going to be about. Because I can't say season with 7, apparently.
If Steven Svesen.
Zem
Well,
Fez.
Steven Svesen, we'll see you next week, Steven.
All right. So yeah, if you have anything that you want to do, if you want to get in touch with Season, the best place to do that is on Twitter at the Say Report. Because Season isn't on Twitter anymore, probably because it's a cult.
No, I think Discord is in the new Twitter, to be honest, but
Well,
that'll
we'll
be a
have to
discussion
cross
for
that
another
bridge.
episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you have any other bullshit that you found in the background of that 90s show that doesn't work, make sure to send it Devin's way at Devin D. Decker.
I would love to commiserate with somebody, so please do that. But until next time, thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye. Will, take us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.